Chapter 731. What the hell? For a moment, Huaishir was dumbfounded. Fortunately, Lawrence had mentioned this to him before, so he was able to cover it up. Now, it wasn't just him. Everyone else who knew about this couldn't hide their shock. Divine City? Huang Chuan's loud voice was already yelling. Shang Tianmu, are you serious? Even the president wouldn't say something like that. It seemed like he was reprimanding, but in reality, he was supporting Shang Tianmu. Normally, Huang Chuan might have maintained his one-track mind and reckless character, but now that he was in a hurry to know the truth, he couldn't care less. Since you dare to say it, then you must have some confidence. Shang Tianmu calmly replied, Jum Kuan, am I right? Jum Kuan's expression was gloomy, and he couldn't control the twitching of his eyes. What are you talking about? Even the president can't frame me like this, right? You still won't admit it? You're really shrewd, Jum Kuan. Shang Tianmu smiled and waved behind him. Soon, someone came up with a pad and showed everyone the video sent from the scene. The things found in the underground space of Jum Kuan's house, or rather, the entire screen was filled with things no one had ever seen before. However, anyone who had a slight understanding of medicine would be able to tell from the shaking screen that it was a sophisticated and complicated biological laboratory. Huaishir even recognized many of the equipment that Tongyi had written for him. There was even a top-grade biological furnace that the Stonepot Society had only recently opened for export and production. This is the scene that was just sent over. This old man didn't dare to believe that there was such a luxurious laboratory in your house. Shang Tianmu sneered. Is Jum Kuan preparing to enter the medical industry? Jum Kuan's face twitched, but he quickly defended himself. I just want to figure out the medicinal properties of the panacea. My men have obtained one in private and want to conduct an experiment on it. Bang! There was a loud sound, and Jum Kuan suddenly screamed as a bloody hole appeared in his leg. In the crowd, Jum Kuan's subordinates were in an uproar, but they had already handed in their weapons before coming in. Now, they were all under Shang Tianmu's watch, and no one dared to take a step forward. You're still being stubborn even now? Look at me. Do you think the people here will believe something as stupid as a panacea? Shang Tianmu took a step forward and pointed the gun barrel at Jiao's face. He roared, Where's the future of God City? Where is that bastard who wants to turn us into pollutants? But soon, an unbelievable scene happened again. Just as he was about to enter the room, the bloody hole caused by the bullet actually stopped bleeding. Then, the thumb-sized wound began to heal rapidly. Without using any medicine, without any origin substance fluctuations or sacred inscriptions to heal him, he was able to quickly recover to his original state. Aha! I did it. I finally did it. I widened my eyes in surprise as if I hadn't expected this. When I came back to my senses, I was overjoyed. Did you see that? Did you see that? The panacea was effective. The experiment was a success. He didn't lie. I've already been healed. Ha ha. As he laughed excitedly, the originally eye-catching scales on his temples began to peel off. In the end, only a few faint leukoplakia remained. His nails, hair, and skin were all rapidly growing back. Very quickly, his body was covered in dead skin. When he reached out and pulled off the cumbersome skin, what was revealed was a face that was 10 years younger. His originally mottled white hair had become dense and jet black. He had regained his youth. He had become like a normal person, in front of everyone's eyes. Such a shocking miracle had occurred. But immediately afterwards, Jiao's expression froze, and his movements froze in place. His laughter stopped. Scarlet blood and fragments of his organs continuously spurted out from his mouth and nose. He coughed violently. Then he screamed in pain. His neck seemed to be twisted as he struggled to raise it. His eyes were bloodshot, as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. The cracks on his face quickly spread. In the end, it fell apart. It was as if he had jumped into a boiling pool of lime, and his screams and cries quickly dissolved. No, why is it like this? We didn't agree on this. He screamed hoarsely and raised his head with difficulty. He screamed in horror. What's going on? Hey, God City. God! Then, the arm that he had raised fell off his body. Jiao fell to the ground, and soon, he dissolved into a puddle of mud. In the blink of an eye, there was nothing left of him. Huaishir had already raised his eyes and looked in the direction that Jiao had seen before he died. In the corner, the middle-aged follower who had been silently following behind Jiao. "You said too much, Mr. Jiao." The man whose face was hidden in the shadows slowly raised his head and took off the glasses on his face. He sighed coldly. "Even in death, you still like to cause trouble for others. That's enough." It was unknown what kind of disguise those eyes were, but after they were taken off, the man actually grew more than 10 centimeters taller. Under the light, it was the face of the future of God City. It was not much different from the picture, except that he had neglected to take care of his beard, which was much longer. "It's so strange. I shouldn't have been exposed. Why are you so sure of my tracks?" He calmly opened his arms and asked Sheng Tianmu, "Why are you standing on the side of an outsider, Mr. Sheng Tianmu? We are the true compatriots, aren't we? Everything I do, isn't it for the sake of all the mixed breeds? No one is your compatriot, God City's future." Sheng Tianmu turned his head and pulled the trigger expressionlessly. A bloody hole appeared on the face of God City's future. Brain matter and blood slowly flowed out. God City's future died instantly. It should have been like this. But God City's future did not fall on his back. Instead, he froze on the spot. After a long time, he slowly lowered his head and looked at the blood that flowed from the hole on his forehead to the ground. "Wagging your tail and begging for mercy will not bring you peace, Sheng Tianmu." He sighed in disappointment. Amidst the rain of bullets from extreme Dao, he indifferently endured the countless attacks that were enough to destroy his body. He stared at everyone with pity. His smile gradually became mocking. "Look, everyone, the things that divide us are far more powerful than the things that unite us. You submit to power, indulge in the illusory peace, and forget the pain and humiliation we were born with. So stupid, so funny. Humans are like cells. Aggregation is a rare miracle. Division is the eternal theme." His broken lips were filled with blood. He slowly opened them and spoke in a hoarse voice. He said, "My name is Prussian. Prussian, differentiation, division, separation." God City's future registered name was derived from an ancient legend in Hebrew. The most essential meaning was to pursue holiness and stay away from the mortal world. In order to create a beautiful and pure country, to stay away from depraved and dirty fools. At that moment, in the rain of bullets, the corner of the broken face curled up, revealing a ferocious smile. "Now, the time of separation has arrived." Bang! At that moment, his head exploded, because behind the front row, someone pushed the people in front of him aside and walked up. Someone impatiently threw a punch and directly smashed his dog's head. Head 2A. Huaishir lowered his head and spat fiercely. Then he raised his foot and stomped down. Not satisfied, he kicked again. "Split your head." Bang. "So what if you're not afraid of bullets? Do you know sumo wrestling?" Bang. "Do you know what quadruple wrestling is?" Bang. "Have you heard of the story of the hero, Tiger King Group?" Ignoring the shocked gazes of the people around him, Huaishir punched and kicked, directly hammering this guy on the spot. At the thought of the huge, hidden danger that this idiot's existence had brought to so many innocent people, Huaishir wished he could scatter this dog's ashes and separate him forever. "Don't transform, understand?" Huaishir stretched out his hand, pulled up the wreckage on the ground that was rapidly recovering by the neck, aimed at the newly grown head, and punched again. The channeling time is so long, and there's no invincibility frame. "Do you really think you're a magical girl?" Bang! Blood spurted out. He was stunned for a moment, because the feeling of this punch was a little strange. To put it in words, it was like punching a pig's urine bubble. It felt a little slippery. Then, he heard the angry roar from the future of the divine city. In his hand, the broken body suddenly expanded and shattered, turning into a rolling abyss of sediment that swept in all directions. An impact comparable to an explosion swept across, flipping Huaishir over. Then, endless darkness spewed out from it, as if Huaishir had finally broken the outer disguise of the outer shell, revealing the rotten true appearance of the fruit after peeling off the outer shell at that moment. Yu Dongri, who was dressed in female clothes, narrowed his eyes, and his eyes became cold. As expected, the aura of hell spewed out from the broken corpse, and the phantom of the two rotten snakes entangled together appeared. Then, the body of the future of the divine city reappeared from the void, intact. The blessing from the ruler came here, allowing him to be reborn, and he roared to the sky. A high-pitched scream burst forth, and then there was a sudden explosion in the night sky, like the roar of a fighter jet breaking through the speed of sound. The earth shook violently. Where Huaishur had originally been, a huge hole had appeared. A bloody and huge figure, who seemed to have been skinned, descended from the sky, shaking off the dust on his body. When he raised his head, two strange, sharp horns had grown out his face, and his face was painted with gold, ferocious and violent. Golden Bear Boy, 4th level of the Ing State genealogy. He should have been like this if he hadn't fallen into the abyss. The Frozen One. That's Lord Kajiro. Huang Chuan was the first to recognize the appearance of the newcomer, and his eyes instantly burned red. "You bastard, divine city. You even want to disturb the dead." He roared, "Kill that bastard for me. Kill that bastard." The hybrid hero who had died long ago, the protector of the Donbua inner circle, had now come back from the dead and stood beside the future of the divine city. His empty eyes looked at Huaishur. Killing intent erupted. "Oh my God!" Huaishur looked up in the midst of rolling pathetically, and then he panicked. "Is AI Qing here? Is she here? Is she here?" Chapter 732. If not Scram, AI Qing almost jumped out of her chair when she heard the screams. She thought that Huaishur was about to die a heroic death. However, when she took a closer look at the satellite surveillance, she found that this guy jumped up and ran away so smoothly and coquettishly that no one could say anything about it. Emergency situation. Huaishur, AI Qing suppressed the faint pain in her stomach and responded in the midst of the complicated mobilization and command. No one expected that the original alliance would be able to find traces of the future of the divine city. Now, everyone was in a panic. "Don't worry, backup is on the way," she said. "Don't worry about the others, hide." An emergency situation meant that the operation personnel would encounter a high risk of death. If necessary, they could consider abandoning the mission to protect themselves. Simply put, if you felt that the problem was too big, you could leave without worry. No matter how many others died, it didn't matter. As for the price of failure, it had nothing to do with Huaishur, the tool. Soon, the information of the person who fell from the sky appeared on AI Qing's screen and was transmitted to Huaishur. 9 Unlimited Ingzhou Genealogy Level 4 Golden Bear Boy. He used to be the guardian of the Donbua inner circle and also one of the pillars of the alliance. Because he didn't like Ji Dao's style of doing things, he didn't show his face in the alliance. However, the alliance was able to survive until now because of his contributions. He could be called the guardian of the Donbua inner circle. A year ago, he died because of the recurrence of his old wounds. Since then, the pressure on the alliance had been increasing day by day, and now, the hero who had passed away had returned from hell and turned into a demon, standing beside the future of the divine city. The future of the divine city laughed, reached out, and pointed at Huaishur. In an instant, there was a deafening sound. The Golden Bear Boy stepped forward, and a terrifying power erupted, instantly overturning the surrounding people. The wind pressure from dozens of meters away pushed Huaishur directly into the wall, and he couldn't get out. He could only watch as the iron fist moved forward inch by inch, crushing his body and bones. Huaishur's body trembled, then trembled again. However, even when he was about to be struck out 3 times, he still didn't choose to use shadow burial to escape. At this critical moment, he raised his head, widened his eyes, and glared at the enemy in front of him. He did not give in, showing the strength and integrity of a member of the Astronomy Association. It was as if he was about to die a heroic death. Huaishur gathered all the strength in his body and roared to the sky. "Lawrence, Save me. It wasn't until just now that he realized that he had a part-time job. Even if the sky collapsed and the people from the Astronomy Society couldn't reach it, there was still green sun. He was just an observer in the Astronomy Society. Why was he so headstrong? Wasn't it better to just sit by the side and do nothing? After such a long time, not to mention Lawrence smoking a cigarette outside, he should have finished a carton of cigarettes by now. A green sun representative can't possibly take a dump at this time, right? Lawrence, say something. Don't keep quiet outside. I know you're at home. Boom. Following Huaishi's emotional call, a hurricane howled in the air. A large, pale, blurry hand suddenly appeared. It was a vague image formed by countless pale frost condensing and a huge amount of cold air contracting. 6 extremely long fingers spread out and slammed down on the ground. After accumulating power for a long time, Lawrence brazenly attacked, instantly covering the Golden Bear Boy and the future of the Divine City behind him. As the symbolic power of Green Sun, the 10 disasters were essentially 10 kinds of miraculous imprints that represented disasters. At this moment, the power of the hailstorm disaster was projected into the present through Lawrence as a springboard. The frost was just the surface, but its essence was the decay that extracted all power and destroyed the vitality of all living things. Once it was fully unleashed, it could even cover half of the city. It could be called a weapon of mass destruction. However, in order to bypass the 3 major blockades, Lawrence only used a small part of the miraculous imprint. It still froze the Golden Bear Boy into ice in an instant. But then, the ice fell apart, and a bloody and burly figure rushed out from it. Under his protection, the future of the Divine City was unscathed. He didn't care about the friendship of the past at all. The dead people who had died long ago and were frozen in hell ruthlessly punched their former compatriots in a meat paste and blood mist. A loud boom rang out. The extreme Daos opened fire. Amidst the rain of bullets, the Golden Bear Boy's body quickly hardened, and countless sparks flew out. He actually withstood the firepower of the modern weapons and blocked the future of the Divine City behind him. He sneered disdainfully. Even if they were restricted and the firepower of these extreme Daos was limited to pistols and small weapons, this defensive power was still terrifying. Why are you attacking him? Attack that dog of a Divine City's future. Huaishi, who was still stuck on the wall, was extremely anxious. If he wasn't worried about losing his horse, he wouldn't even have used the virtuous sword. He would have directly chopped down with the axe of wrath and chopped that dog's head off. The extreme Daos who had opened fire seemed to have woken up from a dream. They instantly turned their guns and aimed at the future of the Divine City, who had just crawled up behind the Golden Bear Boy. This time, the Golden Bear Boy didn't have the arrogance from before. He opened his mouth and sucked in all the blood in the air, along with the remaining origin substance on the deceased body. His body once again swelled up. He raised his hand and grabbed the future of the Divine City by the collar, then suddenly squatted down. As the earth trembled and the bricks cracked, the Golden Bear Boy suddenly shot into the sky again, preparing to leave. It was ridiculous for him to be able to escape like this. Huaishi was just hesitating about whether or not he should throw out the sorrowful rope when he saw a huge shadow appear in the sky. From a distant mountain peak, Lawrence once again appeared. The finger holding the cigarette swiped downwards, and the sky began to rumble. Dark clouds began to gather under the starry sky, and water vapor began to condense. Terrifying heat began to spread in all directions. A huge miracle began to stir up the laws of thermodynamics, and a terrifying and towering body descended. A huge iceberg condensed out of thin air, bringing with it a chill that could freeze the entire mountain peak. It instantly accelerated to the speed of a cannonball and smashed towards the ground. At the same time, its massive body began to shrink at an incredible speed. It completely ignored the laws of physics as the iceberg collapsed inwards, turning into a meteor that burned with frosty flames. The Golden Bear Boy, who had risen into the air, was suppressed by the enormous force and was forced back to the ground inch by inch. His hands were raised high. Blood radiance shot out from his shattered body, burning vigorously and turning into the shadow of an evil spirit, resisting the disaster that was descending from the sky. Shang Tianmu took a step back and bowed to the two people behind him. "I'll have to trouble the two of you from now on." The old man with the spear nodded, while the middle-aged man with the sword did not say a word as he stepped forward. Swordsmanship, shrinking ground. In an instant, he appeared in front of the golden bear boy. The metal radiance in his hands whistled and crisscrossed, leaving a deep cross-shaped mark on the huge body. Even the operation of the miracle of calamity was cut off by the swordsmanship, and it became stiff. Wherever the blade passed, the miracle of nothingness and the calamity of calamity were cleanly split apart. How pathetic. 9. The old man with the spear sighed, raised the burning spear in his hand, and aimed it at the figure that was covered in cracks. He softly said, "Let's meet again in the netherworld, my friend." Intense light burst forth, piercing through the night sky. The terrifying light stung everyone's eyes, taking away all colors, and the world turned pale. Between the pale heaven and earth, everything was left with a simple outline. It was easily pierced through by the spear. A huge bloody hole appeared on the golden bear boy's body, completely destroying it. Then a pervasive frost covered everything from the outside to the inside. The old man with the sword sheathed his sword. With a soft sound and a gentle breeze, the broken body of the nine turned into ice powder, collapsing and dissipating. Finally, in the darkness, the sound of a gunshot burst forth. The bullet crossed a long distance and once again nailed into the face of the God City's future. He originally wanted to laugh in disdain, but as soon as he smiled, he froze on the spot. Because a terrifying heat spread out from the bullet, instantly igniting the darkness in his body, engulfing his limbs and bones. Destruction had arrived. The gunshot that came out of nowhere stunned everyone on the spot. Even the satellite surveillance did not show any clues. It was a sneaky attack. Huaishur tried hard to restrain his gaze, not looking at where the flower was originally. He instinctively had a premonition that the one who fired the shot was Yu Dongri, who had been waiting for a long time. And now, from the burning flames, the God City's future finally understood. It slowly raised its head and smiled disdainfully at everyone. Finally, it raised its eyes and looked coldly at Huaishur. Its lips opened silently in the flames. Then, it dissipated into ashes. Dead? What did this turtle say in the end? I didn't hear it clearly. Huaishur was stunned. He felt as if he had just left the beginner's village and saw NPCs casually hit 999,999 and instantly killed the final boss of the level. But soon he reacted. The God City's future specialization. Genetics. For a scholar of this level, how could it be so easy to die? No matter how much damage the Hybrid Alliance dealt, they could only destroy a clone of the second body. Then, from the bottom of his heart, he felt fear and relief. Fortunately, he was not in a hurry to turn around. Otherwise, now that the God City's future had been dealt with, wouldn't it be his turn? What's this? Tony, who had rushed all the way here, picked up the binoculars and stared at the scene in the distance. He could not believe it and picked up the walkie-talkie. "Hello. Command, we're late. The ashes of the God City's future have been scattered. What do we do next?" "The operation has been terminated." AI Ching's face was gloomy. After a long time, she unhappily squeezed out a voice from between her teeth. Officer Huaishur continued to. Before she finished speaking, she heard hoarse shouts from the scene. It was extremely urgent, heart-wrenching, filled with concern and panic, brimming with lingering fear and worry. That resounding shout was filled with emotions, an interpretation of loyalty and steadfastness, causing one to shed tears and be moved by it. "Come quickly, protect the Lord. Protect the Lord." In the ruins, Huaishur struggled to get up. He spat out mouthfuls of blood and propped himself up. He stood in front of Shun Tianmu and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Protect the main president." No matter what kind of demons and monsters, if they want to hurt the main president, they have to get through me first. Such a loyal and righteous act made the extreme Tao experts cry with respect and move them to tears. His tall body stood tall like a monument, causing the light of the extreme Tao to shine on Shen Tianmu's old face. After going through a set of procedures and confirming that it was safe, Huaishir let out a sigh of relief and revealed a joyful smile. Then, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. This was the final performance for this restless night. As expected, in order to maintain stability and order, the Alliance did not announce the future identity of the God City and his goal to everyone. Instead, they put all the blame on Jiuhua, who had been stabbed in the back by the God City. In order to prevent the venerable Shen Tianmu from becoming the main president, the traitor of the Alliance, Jiuhua, secretly colluded with external forces and crazily manipulated Master Jiu was corpsed to start a rebellion. Not only did Jiuhua go against the path of chivalry, he was also heartless. He actually used his own people as test subjects to research forbidden drugs. He deserved to die, and his sneaky behavior had long been seen through by the discerning General Guildmaster. In the end, with the help of the White Paper Doll and other loyal people, the General Guildmaster quickly quelled the rebellion and set things right, allowing the Donbua Inner Circle to finally usher in a bright future. Although Lawrence was not satisfied that he had fallen to the wait-and-see part of the story, there was no better way to deal with it. With the approval of the higher-ups, the chaotic and bizarre Alliance Conference came to an end. For most of the people in the Alliance, this night was just the beginning. Changing positions, transferring power, dividing up territory, appeasing the people, promoting trusted aides, exchanging benefits. There were simply too many things that needed to be done. Amidst the countless busy matters, no one noticed that there seemed to be an insignificant matter that had been overlooked. However, since it was a small matter, there was no need to pay attention to it. Everyone thought about it, but couldn't remember, so they threw it to the back of their minds and continued to happily trade. On the other side of Kyoto, the night was long. When the morning sun weakly climbed up from the horizon, it illuminated Osho Mitsuaki's gloomy old face. After a night of hard work with all the elites and countless weapons, the leader of the Iron King faction sat on the steps in front of the headquarters. He lowered his head and looked at the dew on his battle robe, then raised his head to look at the bright sun. Doubts arose from the bottom of his heart. Didn't those bastards say they were going to attack? He slowly turned his head and looked at every uneasy face. He asked softly, "Where are they?" "Big, probably lost." Someone mustered up the courage to answer, and then flew out with a loud bang of a shotgun. "Lost!" Osho Mitsuaki's eyes widened, and he roared angrily. "Lost for the whole night? It's less than 20 minutes of distance by taxi. In such a long time, I can walk to the Donbua Inner Circle. You're King telling me you're lost? Didn't you say that those bastards were going to attack us?" He roared, "Where are they? Where are they?" No one responded. Only the crow passing by in the distance left behind a sharp cackle. In the silence, Osho Mitsuaki looked at those terrified faces and suddenly lost the strength to be angry. He lowered his head tiredly, threw down his shotgun, turned around, and walked out of the door. He sat on the steps and stared at the gradually flowing traffic outside the door. There was a deep sense of grief and indignation in his heart. Every time you say you're going to CK a dog. Every time you say you're going to CK a dog. But every time a dog is ready, you don't come. The long night was so lonely. "This is too much. How dare you donkey me?" He raised his hand and wiped away the disappointed and bitter tears at the corner of his eyes. Under the light of the morning sun, Osho Mitsuaki once again understood the hesitation and sorrow of the human world. Chapter 733. In the middle of the night, before the sun rose. In the silent command center, lines of words appeared on the screen in front of AI Ching as she typed on the keyboard. After a comprehensive analysis of the intelligence collected by various departments, the Divine City is suspected to have the power of hell behind it. Their motives are unknown, and the threat level is recommended to be raised. Current suspects: Corpse Workshop, Human Exhibition Bureau, Tomb of the Returnless, Rancher, Withered King. The Donbua Inner Circle is temporarily stable, and there are signs of riots. Future forecast may be chaotic, but there is still a need to observe during this period. Involves the interim meeting of the P5. When she wrote about the interim meeting of the P5, AI Ching's fingers paused for a moment, hesitating whether to delete this line. According to internal information, the proposals and objectives of this internal meeting of the Directorate of Defense were too serious. If the changes in the Donbua inner circle were connected, the situation may be further complicated. After a short moment of contemplation, she continued writing the report. Finally, she paused at the last line. Top secret target no. S09. In the silence, AI Ching's fingers hovered above the case, pausing for a long time. Finally, slowly and surely, she wrote a conclusion. Temporarily untraceable. Just like that, she pressed the send button. There was a soft sound on the table. The number on the counter changed. 7 AI. Ching sighed silently and closed her eyes tiredly. This time, they were even. In the middle of the night, in the hospital, Huaisher inexplicably woke up from a dream. To say that he woke up with a start was very problematic, because there was nothing that could affect the quality of a young arbiter of life sleep and make his soul spontaneously wake up from a deep sleep. It was not a stress response, but some changes that triggered the stigmata and perception to naturally make him open his eyes, and then he saw a pair of dark eyes, almost within reach. "Did you miss me?" She smiled and asked softly. Huaisher froze in place and almost screamed. "Ghost!" Immediately, he reacted. "Oh, it's Tongi. Then it's fine." Huaisher rubbed his face numbly. He couldn't figure out why she woke him up. He could only sigh helplessly. "Why are you floating in the air? Are you trying to scare me?" So calm? When he woke up and saw his big sister's face, shouldn't he be blushing and his heart racing? How disappointing. Tongi looked down and smiled. "Besides, I'm not floating. I'm standing properly. Well, I'm just a little closer." Huaisher followed her line of sight and met with an obstacle. He turned around and finally saw, to a certain extent, she was indeed standing on the wall beside him. It was as if there was no such thing as gravity. Not even a strand of her hair was floating down, and the hem of her dress stayed where it was supposed to be. How'd he do it? He was a fool. But in order to prevent her from throwing out some strange settings to attack him, he could only pretend that he was used to it. He put his body back in its original position, face to face, and asked seriously, "What is it?" "Can't I look for you if there's nothing?" Tongi looked lonely. "I just want to find someone to talk to. Why do you dislike me so much?" Woman. Huaisher was unmoved. He even had time to look at the balance in his account. His money was still there. Huaisher suddenly became more and more surprised and incredulous. It was as if the sun had risen from the west. The world seemed to have suddenly become a fantasy. Tongi actually stopped robbing him. He was stunned for a long time. He looked at the woman in front of him uneasily and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" "I'm very good, very good. I even gained 200 grams. Sigh. I still need to drink less milk tea." After that, she put the milk tea in her hand to her mouth, took 2 sips, and handed it over. "Do you want it?" Huaisher's eyes twitched. He was about to refuse when he heard her sigh. "Speaking of which, don't you feel that something is wrong?" Huaisher didn't understand. Tongi shrugged and took a step back. Well, she floated up a little, giving Huaisher some breathing space. "You might have misunderstood. Although I came at the right time, I didn't wake you up." She looked at Huaisher's phone regretfully. "You were already awake before they were ready to make a move." Huaisher frowned. He raised his hand and flipped open the Book of Destiny. He quickly flipped through his experiences in the past few days. Then his frown deepened. He felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell. The page numbers in the Book of Destiny were no longer coherent. His memories seemed to have changed and were forcefully pieced together. The originally coherent matters had become loose. Moreover, some of the contents were different. Wasn't he still tinkering with Qianyi and Long Air to fight against Shang Timu? Wasn't there an internal conflict between the 5 bosses? Why did the words on the Book of Destiny suddenly blurred? Soon after, large sections of blacked out and deleted contents quickly appeared. Huaisher felt as if he was struck by lightning. Those blurry memories quickly changed. Very soon, They shrunk from their fleeting state to their current state. He was drenched in sweat. What the hell? This was the first time he had encountered such a phenomenon. Logically speaking, only he had the right to change the Book of Destiny. To be exact, only Tangi existed as a branch. Without this pen, no item should be able to change the Book of Destiny. However, his destiny and records had silently changed. Could it be that other than himself, there's something else in this world that could affect the celestial genealogy's source code? Don't think too much. There's no problem with the Book of Destiny. The only problem is you, Tangi explained. The records of the Book of Destiny are indeed unchangeable and have the highest priority. However, in reality, its power is limited by its observation point, which is you. Everything is recorded from your point of view. What it witnesses is everything you have experienced. If you can become a natural enemy in the future, it might be able to add in other people's perspectives that are related to you. Similarly, if what you have experienced changes, then the content will naturally be different. What do you mean? Huaishir didn't understand. It's very simple, Tangi said. It's just that the time has been changed. Huh? Huaishir felt that he was hallucinating. Tangi said calmly, someone used the power of the Bifrost to perform a time jump and revise the events. Although it's a very small part, it still caused the distortion of the present situation to increase. Well, it's obvious that the other party was quite restrained. In order to reduce everyone, they didn't implicate too many people. Probably only close to 2,000 square kilometers of Greenland was eternally decertified. It should be 2,900 now. What the hell? Huaishir was stunned. He felt that everything was getting more and more mysterious. What the hell is this? Let me think. If I explain it in a way that you can understand, it's... Load the file. Tangi thought for a while and said seriously, it's not satisfied with the original plot development. It violated the rules and made corrections to the details in an attempt to get a different result. Unfortunately, a person's power is limited after all. No matter how much effort you put in, most of it will only be in vain. Wait, Huaishir finally reacted. He subconsciously got up from the bed, raised his head, and got close to Tangi's face. He couldn't believe it. You said that the Bifrost can reverse time. Is it true? Of course. Tangi asked in confusion. After all, it's one of the 3 major blockades. It's a huge achievement that the Astronomy Society is proud of. If it's just a portal with Wi-Fi, it's too useless. Although the conditions for using it are very harsh, if it's used properly, it can even send the entire present situation back to a year ago. That exaggerated? It's just a name. Although it can be achieved according to calculations, the cost of interfering with the scale of the entire world and the burning of the source substance is something that even the entire present situation can't afford. I'm afraid that the present situation will collapse before the teleportation is completed. At that time, what's the difference between a pile of ashes and a year ago and destruction? Therefore, the things that those lunatics in the Utopia researched were either of little value or of wonders. Each one was more prodigal than the other. However, limited by the cost, although it can't be used on a large scale, if it's cut a little and the expectations are lowered a little, there will occasionally be unexpected surprises. Thus, what was achieved was the miracle of time jump. At the cost of the eternal vitality of the entire green space and dense forest, the entire area was completely turned into a desert. The source substance and future heat were extracted to send a person's consciousness and soul back to their own body 24 days ago. Therefore, secret personnel, such as the Doomsday Sentinels, were born. In the Book of Destiny, when the quill pen reached this point, it paused for a moment and tapped on the page. The large paragraph of text suddenly became thin, as if it was in between existence and non-existence. With the God's wedge in hand, Tangi could temporarily avoid the Astronomical Association's confidentiality measures, such as the Silencer Stone Tablet and Mimetic Blockade. However, she still couldn't continue to write in detail. She could only give Huaishir a general understanding. After a long time, Huaishir came to a realization. In other words, the Astronomical Association reloaded the file in order to save the Dombwa Inner Circle? What are you thinking about? Tongi glanced at him with a strange expression. This isn't cost-effective at all, okay? Do you know how precious a soul that can be born to resonate with the Bifrost and withstand the reversal of time is? Every time such a precious consumable is discovered, it's a treasure of the Astronomical Association. It's 10 times more precious than the entire Damboa inner circle combined. How could it be wasted in such a place? Then, of course, it's against the law and acting on its own. Tongi shrugged sympathetically and seemed to be implying something. I'm afraid that a retired police officer bypassed the Astronomical Association and directly forced the resonance to trigger the jump mechanism. Although I don't know what kind of price he paid, it definitely wasn't easy. Wait, you're not talking about that bastard Udongri, are you? Huaisher suddenly realized, and his whole body went numb. I was wondering how he knew that I was a spy. It turns out that this bastard dares to cheat in addition to cross-dressing. This is simply outrageous. I'll twist him and send him to the Astronomical Association tomorrow. After being angry for a long time, Huaisher finally remembered. That's not right. What exactly is he after? Who knows? Why don't you ask him yourself? Tongji raised her hand and threw the empty milk tea to an unknown place. Then, she rubbed her hands together and magically brought out a bowl of ice cream. The top of the ice cream was sprinkled with chocolate, biscuits, and fruit slices. She scooped up a spoonful and swallowed it together with the cherry on top. She narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. Ah, it's good that the times have changed, Huaisher. You have to thank science. She sighed and ignored Huaisher's stomach growling. She said casually, compared to that, I'm actually more worried about you. Me? Huaisher laughed. What I have to worry about? What do you think? Tongi calmly ate her ice cream, but her eyes were fixed on Huaisher's eyes. After a long time, he helplessly looked away and shrugged. Confused? Hesitant? Uneasy or angry? Tongi scrutinized his expression and couldn't help but shake her head. Your origin substance is filled with uncertainty. Even the young arbiter of fate's stigmata has begun to seal up. Could it be because of the Danbo inner circle? To be honest, it's a bit annoying. Huaisher sighed and collapsed back onto the bed. My head hurts. That's normal. Spies are like this. It's much worse than being a traitor. Tongi said sympathetically. See, that's where the interesting part is. Even though these two words have roughly the same meaning, the people involved feel completely different. She said, because they're fundamentally different. They both had to endure, but the things spies and traitors had to endure were completely different. A traitor's needs were always clear. Betrayal was just the price they had to pay in order to obtain what they wanted. But for a spy, betrayal was the end. All of their actions and goals were for the sake of their ultimate betrayal. Spies are often very painful, but a traitor's happiness is something that no one can imagine. Because a traitor only needs to know how to live happily, but a spy can only be sad to the end. Even the betrayal isn't for their own sake. Tongi sighed sympathetically. From this perspective, spies are indeed much crueler than traitors. What kind of twisted logic is that? Huaisher shook his head. I thought that you would feel the same way. Tongi shrugged. After all, you've already experienced both of these feelings. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a contradiction, right? Huaisher was speechless. Tongi lowered her head and leaned in closer. Her cold breath brushed against Huaisher's cheek, bringing with it the sweet scent of butter. However, her gaze was completely devoid of any charm. Instead, it was dignified and serious. It was as if she could peer into his soul and see what he was thinking. Let me guess, she said. You have two completely different impulses right now, Huaisher. One makes you want to replace those incompetent people, take control of everything yourself, and make the situation better. For this reason, you must seize power and even challenge the officials of Yingzhou, even if you know that it won't end well. But the other impulse is telling you that it has nothing to do with you. You don't have to do so much. You're just a spy. Even if you complete the task, nothing will change. So, after getting some results to deal with it, you start to slack off. Anyway, even if the sky falls, there's the bureau to hold it up. There's also the overbearing president who can always turn the tide, right? Huaisher rolled his eyes. Isn't that good? I didn't say that it's not good, but it's just avoiding the problem. Tangi told him calmly. If you let others make the choice for you, no matter what the outcome is, it's meaningless to you. You'll only feel confused, then hesitate, then feel pain. After the pain, you'll gradually get used to it. After getting used to it, you'll start to comfort yourself that everyone is the same just because they can't help it. In the end, you'll start to compromise unknowingly and start to get used to everything you hate. You'll become a qualified member of society. And this is the beginning of depravity. Isn't it a little too much to call it depravity? Huaishir was stubborn. Maybe I've matured? Huaishir, if you've matured, I won't sympathize with you no matter how much pain you're in. On the contrary, even if you rush straight into the abyss, I'll still encourage you. But no matter what, you shouldn't just stand there. She stretched out her cold spoon and held it in front of Huaishir's eyes, not allowing him to escape her gaze. Then she told the contractor in front of her word by word, if you can't stand it, then change it. If you can't stand it, then do it yourself. You should do what you want to do, Huaishir. She said, you're my contractor. You have the right to do so, and you should have the right to do so. Huaishir froze in place. In the brief silence, Tangi suddenly smiled happily and was no longer serious. The spoon in her hand was brought to his mouth, bringing with it melting cream and syrup. Do you want some? Huaishir nodded subconsciously. The taste was as sweet as expected, with a hint of bitterness. He didn't know whether it was because he had finally relaxed or because he had made up his mind, but his originally tense mind gradually relaxed, and he felt sleepy. Before he closed his eyes, he watched the figure in front of him gradually disappear. He couldn't help but call out to her. Tangi, Before she turned into a blackbird, she looked back and looked over. I'll try. Huaishir told her seriously. Thank you. You're my contractor. You're welcome. Tangi smiled handsomely and disappeared into the darkness. She left silently. As for Huaishir, she closed her eyes. For some reason, he, who was gradually turning into a salted fish, was full of fighting spirit. From tomorrow onwards, he would do his best to cause trouble. He decided that the grand plan to change the Dambwa inner circle would start with unifying Extreme Path. The next day, Huaishir, who was woken up, opened his eyes. Before he could yawn, he saw two policemen rushing into the ward from the corridor and the action team behind them with live ammunition. The MPD badges on their chests were shining brightly under the morning sun, dazzling Huaishir. Then, without waiting for him to speak, handcuffs were put on his wrists with a click. Huaishir Bai, you're under arrest. Chapter 734. The white paper doll was caught. In less than 5 minutes, the news had been passed to the 4 big bosses by the Jidao, who were guarding the ward to protect the rebels. Then, it quickly spread among the alliance. Everyone knew about the white paper doll, but everyone was curious as to why the white paper doll was caught. They wanted to discuss it with the 4 big bosses in the comment section. But now, the president didn't want to discuss it with everyone in the comment section. He even stuffed a few guys who spread the news the most fiercely into cement balls and sank them into the bay. It wasn't just a white paper doll. 3 minutes later, one news after another was sent to them. White paper doll from the white paper doll group. White paper doll from the Erida group. White paper doll from the Nakajima group. Nakajima Hiroshi from the Nakajima group. Hayakum Okinawa from the Heroic Hunter group. The backbone of the Alliance, especially those who participated in the Alliance meeting last night, have been taken away by the Metropolitan Police Department. They were said to assist in the investigation, and those people were suspected to different degrees in more than 30 different cases. But in fact, which Jidao was clean? Even the most innocent person, the paper doll, was implicated in the murder case of the Arasaka family. If they were really determined to do something, the MPD had 10,000 ways to target the inner circle of Dambwa. But the problem was, what was the benefit of doing so? Every big boss had a lot of underlings who were used as scapegoats. Even the white paper doll who had just arrived, as long as it was necessary, he didn't even need to say anything. Shangye would jump out and confess. It has nothing to do with the big boss. I killed the people. I kidnapped the big boss. Come and get me. Not to mention the subsequent chaos and terrible increase in the frequency of crime. What for? Not to mention the lackeys running errands under the Metropolitan Police Department. Those above the rank of Deputy Commissioner of the Police Department were all graduates from prestigious universities. After killing thousands of soldiers and horses, they held on to a secure job. They were the elites of society who could retire with a large sum of experience and annuity. Wasn't the job of a civil servant in Yingzhou good? Isn't it good for everyone to make some shady deals in private and get some unspeakable gray income? Why do they have to take the blame? Especially when the order was about to be issued. Who would be stupid enough to stir up trouble at this time? Besides, would the Green Sun be happy if the hybrid alliance was gone? It was definitely not the Metropolitan Police Department's decision. Shogunate or Looming Hall? Which one do you prefer? Sheng Tianmu smoked his pipe and looked at Thousand Leaves Ruji, who was sitting on the sofa. It's all possible. After hurriedly walking into the elevator, the director finally had time to look at Ase, who represented Looming Hall, to contact the Metropolitan Police Department. Ase, who was usually cold and majestic, stood obediently behind the visitor, bowed his head, and respectfully responded to the occasional question with a proper and humble attitude. Finally, he was free. Ase fell a step behind and whispered to the director. The impact of last night's incident was not small. Before the order is issued, Kyoto can't be in chaos. That lord came to inspect specially. Don't make any mistakes. The director nodded in a hurry. Did you bring all the people? The director wiped his sweat and looked helpless. They're all in the interrogation room. I've questioned them. They're all tough bones. Passing by the closed door all the way, they could vaguely hear the arrogant shouts coming from inside. Arrest me if you have the ability. Where's the evidence? Is there any evidence? Last night, I just went to have a drink with my brothers. What's the matter? Our company is a legal organization. Officer, don't talk nonsense. The director's expression became gloomy, and he didn't know how to explain it. Ase's expression was calm, and he had already expected it. This group of extreme Dao had been in the police station many times, and they were all people who had nothing to fear. Some of them didn't even say a word and directly said that they wanted to see a lawyer. As for some people who obviously had something on the MPD, they were also very tight-lipped this time. And the few team leaders who had been in contact with the Metropolitan Police Department in private also kept quiet out of fear about what happened at the Alliance Conference this time. In the end, what they said was the usual, and it was after the torture. Everyone was either cursing, remaining silent, or begging in a low voice, "Sir, don't be like this. I still have family." Only a burst of laughter came from behind a half-open door. It was exceptionally disharmonious. With a bang, the sound of a table being slammed was heard. The fortune teller said that the success of 10,000 generals depends on a single skeleton. I don't agree. The calm and low voice said, I think that those who come out to make a living should decide whether to live or die by themselves. When I was doing business with my brothers at the parking lot in front of the Cooking Demon competition, I didn't expect that I could get to this point today. You flatter me. You flatter me. It's just the courage of an ignorant man. If there's a chance, who would want to be an extreme Dao? While talking and laughing, the young man who was handcuffed to the table raised the paper cup in his hand and congratulated the policeman behind the table who was interrogating him. In short, cheers, police officers. I wish you all the best in your career in the MPD. There was a sound of agreement, and it was simply a happy and harmonious atmosphere. If those extreme Daos could be as reasonable as Mr. Huaiji, we would have a lot less work to do. In the interrogation room, the bearded old policeman put down the pen in his hand and sighed. Do you want some more beer? It's almost lunchtime. Do you want to try the pork chop rice? Let me tell you, the pork chop rice is a specialty of the Metropolitan Police Department. You have to try it. As he spoke, he gave a look to the subordinate next to him, indicating that he should go out and prepare, but the subordinate stood there awkwardly. He frowned and gave another look. Then, he finally turned around and saw the livid dean and the two strangers behind him. I told you to interrogate. Is this how you interrogate people, Sakaguchi? The dean asked coldly. You're really something. You're almost brothers with the trash of society. Impressive. Sakaguchi's expression twitched, and he lowered his head to bow. Before he could speak, he heard a voice behind him. Hey sir, you can't say that. I'm still a suspect, a suspect. How did I become the trash of society? Besides, our Huaiji trading company pays taxes every year and has never had a bad record. We're an excellent company. Speaking of this, the young man's expression became sorrowful. Thanks to Mr. Sakaguchi, I deeply realized my mistake and am willing to fully cooperate with the police's inquiry. I know that everyone has prejudice against people like us, so please don't blame him. If there's anything wrong, blame it on me. The dean was furious and was about to scold him, but he saw that the other police officers beside him had a look of agreement. They were full of sympathy for the discrimination and injustice Mr. Huaiji had encountered. It was as if they had been King drugged. What the hell was this? The dean was about to fly into a rage and let this tramp see who the boss here was, but Ase, who was behind him, pressed down on his shoulder. Don't lose your composure. This is not an ordinary person. Ase sneered. Although he looks young, this is the leader of the Huaiji Trading Company. He wiped out the Tiger King squad in an hour and personally quelled the rebellion in my family. He's the favorite of the 5 big bosses. No, it should be the 4 big bosses now, right? Behind the table, Huaisher looked up and then looked at the person behind him. He couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ase's expression turned cold. What are you laughing at? Huaisher lowered his head, covered his mouth, and waved his hand. Sorry, I have a friend whose wife is about to give birth. In the silence, Ase's hand was on the hilt of the knife under his suit. Then, he heard a voice behind him. All right, Ase, you guys can go out first. Let me talk to him. Ase was stunned for a moment and then nodded. After glancing at the dean, he motioned for everyone to follow him out. Immediately, he raised his hand and turned off the surveillance equipment inside. Finally, he closed the door respectfully. In the silence, Huaisher tilted his head and looked at the person behind the table. He raised his eyebrows and looked curious. Are you going to ask for my name next? Have you had enough fun, Huaisher? He saw that Amber was expressionless. Chapter 735. Under the light of the interrogation room, the new head of the Legion family, Legion Hupa, who was wearing a black robe, looked down at the prisoner handcuffed here. The prisoner was also looking at her, his eyes blank. I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Before you pretend you don't know anything, can you change your name first? Legion Hupa coldly said, Other people don't remember this matter. Do you think I've forgotten? Huaisher couldn't help but roll his eyes. Sigh. If he knew earlier, he wouldn't have left this trail, but if he didn't leave a trail, he wouldn't be able to collect the money. Oh my God, you invited me to Yingzhou. Not only did you not pay me after I finished the work, but you also locked me up in the police station? Thinking of this, Huaisher couldn't help but slap the table. You dare to steal the money of the Astronomy Association. You Yingzhou people have a terrible conscience. Li Jianhu silently looked at him, put the phone on the table, and entered the number of the Astronomy Association's Yingzhou Branch 1 by one in front of him. In the end, she was stopped by Huaisher with handcuffs. You can't. Big sister, let's talk things out. The special agent from headquarters was undercover right under the noses of the branch. Once it was exposed, especially at this critical juncture, who knew how big of a mess it would cause? How did you know I was here? Huaisher was puzzled from the bottom of his heart. As the head of the Legion family, don't tell me you're playing with the extreme Tao when you have nothing to do. How big of a deal do you think it is? Almost all of the Wu family's officials are paying attention to the capital, not to mention a new head like me. I'm also a member of the Looming Hall now. If Hupa didn't mention it, Huaisher would have almost forgotten. Stinky's sister was now rich, the head of Anfang, the tyrant of Yingzhou, and the gold medal of Dongxia. No, it was a small bridge of friendship between the two countries separated by water and Xiaoying. The trouble you caused last night, do you really think it wasn't big enough? Hupa squinted at him. Luckily, I was here today. When I saw the list, I thought I was blind. So when you said goodbye, you planned to meet me in the police station? A coincidence. Huaisher smiled awkwardly. As the saying goes, people in the martial arts world have no choice. The cooking demon competition is over. Why are you still in Yingzhou? You even want to meddle in the affairs of mixed breeds. What are you trying to do now? Hupa looked at him warily. Based on her understanding of this guy, wherever this guy went, there would be a 3-foot wave. Wherever he went, everything would collapse, and wherever he went, everything would explode. After finding out that he was wandering around the capital, Hoopa was so scared that he almost wanted to increase the security of the imperial palace. She solemnly looked at the man in front of her and solemnly asked, "Are you here because of High Emperor?" What the hell? Huaishir was stunned for a long time. His head suddenly shook like a rattle drum. "I don't even know what your High Emperor's name is. Why would I do anything for him?" Huaishir asked seriously. "I'm the Prince of Paradise. Why would I do something like this for you?" If anyone else heard Huaishir's disrespectful words, they would probably arrange for Peanuts to be killed. However, Hoopa, who was a traitor of Eastern Xia, didn't care about this at all. He continued to ask, "Then it's because of those mixed breeds? You just think of it as school business." Huaishir thought for a long time, but he didn't know how to explain. His expression became complicated, and he instinctively wanted to light a cigarette. It was a good thing that there was a signal blocking in the interrogation room. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how to deal with AI Ching right now. School business? Hoopa flipped through the report in his hand and casually asked, "I heard that you're very close with the daughter of the Heavenly Mu family. You're almost sleeping on the same bed? How can you speak empty words and sully my innocence?" Huaishir was angry. "Do you still have something like innocence?" Hoopa coldly snorted. Thinking of the trouble he had to settle next gave him a terrible headache. He sighed, "Huaishir, I don't care what you do, but it's best if you don't get involved too much. The waters of the No Matter Order are too deep. I'm afraid it's not just a battle between the General and the High Emperor. Then can you help me?" Huaishir blinked his eyes and moved closer. His pitiful appearance made the Hound God armor appear on Hoopa's back. He almost wanted to hack this bastard to death. In a long silence, Hoopa coldly stared at him. After a long time, he suddenly opened his mouth. "Okay," she said. "I'll help you, you help me. Destroy the Iron King faction." She said, "If you insist on getting involved in this matter, I can use my status to help you. But once the No Matter Order is given, you must help me completely eliminate the Iron King faction, no matter what method you use." Huaishir was completely dumbfounded. "Isn't the Iron King faction the lackeys of your looming hall? You already said that they're the lackeys of the looming hall, not mine." Hoopa sneered. "Do you think there's no conflict within the looming hall?" In the silence, Huaishir looked at her in shock. After a long time, he asked from the bottom of his heart, "Why isn't your looming hall finished yet? Look at the Dongxia family tree, and then look at your Ingzhou family tree. Not to mention the size, just the office atmosphere and human relations are 100,000 streets away. How can this dog have the heart of a dog and the face of a dog fight with others? This is called corporate culture, Huaishir." Hoopa's phone spun around his fingertips, and the number of the Astronomy Society was faintly discernible. "Help or not?" Huaishir shook his head and sighed helplessly. "Let's be honest. You want me to help you deal with the Iron King faction with just one sentence. I'm also a small fry now. It's really difficult to deal with." He spread out his hands, looking like he wanted to help but couldn't. He was waiting for Hoopa to add money. However, Hoopa seemed to believe him and nodded understandingly. "If that's the case, then the matter of the balance. Help." With a bang, Huaishir slammed his hand that wasn't cuffed on the table and said righteously, "Let me tell you, Huaishir, can't stand beautiful girls asking me for help the most. As the saying goes, rely on your parents at home and rely on your friends when you go out. In my heart, my friends are like my parents. I'll definitely help you today." Although his words were quite good, the feeling inside was a bit wrong no matter how he thought about it. Hoopa looked at him for a long time and finally reached out his hand. Then, happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Forgetting the previous unpleasantness, the white paper figure, who had successfully colluded with Master Gongqing and colluded with him, revealed a harmless smile. Suddenly, the curtains of the meeting came to an end in a jubilant atmosphere. After Huaishir finished his pork chop rice, he wiped his mouth. Before he patted his butt and prepared to leave, he couldn't help but ask casually, "By the way, since we've already colluded helped each other, Then in the future, won't we have to rely on you to take care of our group? As a bad premonition gradually surfaced, Hoopa felt a headache coming on again. She began to think, who was the one who became the other's tool in this wave? Maybe I should just report him to the police. In reality, it didn't take long for everyone to be released. After all, they didn't really want to make an example out of the hybrid alliance. It was just a warning and punishment after they noticed the fight near the city last night. Little brother, you guys went overboard. Got it? Take a beating, go through the process, and it'll be over. However, coming to the police station could allow his illegal career to take a big step forward. It was really beyond Huai Shi's expectations. Thinking about the good days of colluding with Hoopa in the future, he couldn't help but want to sing. However, he soon noticed that the gazes around him were strange. There was a faint sense of disgust and contempt. Among all the people released, there were very few who didn't have bloodstains and bruises on their bodies. There was also no one who was as smug as Huai Shi, walking as if he was floating. He was even smiling, not to mention the way he warmly said goodbye to the few police officers at the door. This dog, don't tell me he sold everyone out? Traitor. If it weren't for the fact that they were at the entrance of the Metropolitan Police Department, the few big brothers would have already taken the place of the president to chop off his dog head. It's not what everyone thinks. Huai Shi quickly raised his hand to explain, but he really didn't know how to let everyone understand the difference between a person's charm and likability. Before he could think of a way to explain, he felt his phone vibrate violently. It was a call from the finance department of Huai Shi Group, Otaku Jian. The voice sounded anxious. Oh no, group leader Huai Shi Group. Something happened at the foot of the mountain. Otaku Jian said anxiously. In the morning, Ruitu went to receive the assets assigned by the president, but he was detained by the new Luo group. Huai Shi raised his eyebrows. At the headquarters of the alliance, Sheng, Tianmu, and Chiba politely and respectfully sent the two guests to the door. After a round of warm greetings, Sheng Tianmu sent the two guests to the car with a smile on his face. He waved his hand and watched the car gradually disappear into the distance until it disappeared at the end of his vision. His smile gradually disappeared. A bunch of greedy bastards, Chiba said coldly. It seems like they've already predicted that we won't be able to hold on for long. They're in a hurry to squeeze the last bit of profit out of us. It's just a business deal. Don't mind it, Chiba Koen. Sheng Tianmu waved his hand indifferently. It's just spending money to buy time. For the current us, is there a better deal than this? Just as they were talking, their phones rang at the same time. Not long after, Sheng Tianmu nodded and hung up the phone. He turned to look at Chiba. It seems like the masters are still keeping their word. They've already released the person 10 minutes ago. Later, I'll have to trouble you to arrange for someone to go over and organize a dinner for everyone tonight. We can't let them suffer for nothing. Chiba wanted to say something, but stopped. Her expression was complicated. What's wrong? Sheng Tianmu turned around and looked at her. This, Chiba replied awkwardly. There's a mistake on my side. That bastard from the new Luo group saw that the Huai Jiji figurine was taken away, so he had thoughts that he shouldn't have. Without my permission, he took over the property that was allocated to the Huai Jiji group and injured 2 people. Oh, is that so? Sheng Tianmu's expression became strange. Then I'm sorry. Please don't take it to heart. Chiba Long-Air was stunned for a while. Then he became nervous and bowed, explaining seriously, No, I didn't know about this at all. I don't have any dissatisfaction with the president. I just hope that you can forgive the new Luo group for their hard work over the years. I'll definitely punish them heavily when I get back. Long-Air, are you misunderstanding something? Sheng Tianmu quickly helped him up. I'm not dissatisfied with you. You and I have known each other for so many years. If I was really angry, why would I be so sarcastic? Then, Chiba was confused. What I mean is, there's nothing I can do about this. Sheng Tianmu spread his hands and sighed helplessly. Judging by the speed of the Huai Jiji group, I'm afraid that the new Luo group won't be able to wait for you to punish them heavily when you get back. It's hopeless. Just wait for death. Goodbye. Chapter 736. After hanging up the phone, Huaisher looked down at his phone in silence. He didn't expect that after sitting in the police station for 4 hours, someone would start to have ideas about his share of the cake. However, the so-called extreme Tao was such a cold and realistic place. Even if it was covered in a chivalrous and benevolent outer shell, it couldn't change its cold nature. As early as last night, less than 3 hours after Jojo died, Jojo's family was dismantled by the remaining 4 bosses. After the core industries were divided up by the bosses, the leftover soup was still shocking enough. As a most outstanding group, Huaisher Group was the first to get their share of the rich bonus. 2 popular nightclubs, a horse racing track, and the title deeds of the 3 shopping malls that added up to an entire floor. Shang Tianmu's arrangements were perfect. The nightclubs were the foundation for Huaisher Group to expand their business and strengthen their strength. The title deeds could provide long-term funds, and the horse racing track was a treasure bowl that could make people rich overnight. Now, after New Luo Group took the lead in occupying one of his nightclubs, there were even problems with the title deeds and the horse racing track. You can't blame others if you can't take what the bosses gave you. Some of the other group leaders had already been picked up by their underlings. Those who didn't leave weren't in a hurry. They didn't mind that this place was unlucky. They smoked and watched from the side. There was nothing happier in this world than seeing someone else's misfortune, especially when everyone else was in trouble. Only this person could still laugh out loud. Retribution is coming, baby. Huaisher didn't have to wait too long. Soon, a phone number was sent to Huaisher's phone. It was the number of the New Luo Group's leader. Huaisher dialed, but no one picked up for a long time until the call was automatically hung up. Huaisher calmly broadcasted the call again and automatically hung up again. It wasn't until the 3rd time that an impatient voice picked it up. So troublesome. I'm still busy here, said the unhappy voice. Which one? New Luo Group? Huaisher opened her mouth and asked calmly, I'm just a plain woman. Isn't this inappropriate? Ha! The person on the other end was surprised for a moment. Then, he vaguely heard him talking to the person next to him. Did you hear that? The people from Huaiji's group called me. Ha! Soon, the voice sounded again. It was as if the speaker had been turned on, and it instantly became noisy. Team leader Huaiji, I'm so sorry. There was an accident, and it made everyone lose face. Please forgive me. Accident? Huaisher asked. Yes, it was an accident. The man laughed and said, How about this, brother Huaiji? You just came out. Why don't I treat you to a meal and help you get rid of the bad luck? Let's have a good talk about this. Huaisher sighed and was too lazy to continue wasting time with him. What about the foot of the mountain? At the foot of the mountain, the one you detained, Huaisher asked, You have to let me know if he's dead or alive before we can talk, right? The person on the other end snorted. After a burst of noise, there was the sound of a door being pushed open, and something heavy fell to the ground. After a vague, angry shout, there was another burst of noise. He can still move. What tough guy. Hey, you're at the foot of the mountain, right? Your team leader called you. Come, say a few words. Team leader. A hoarse voice sounded from the foot of the mountain. It's me, Huaisher asked. Are you still alive? Yes. Then it seems that you're lucky. At least they left some face for the president. In the future, when I'm not here, don't argue with people about this kind of thing. Otherwise, they won't be able to get the thing back and die in vain. Do you think the funeral is free? Huaisher coldly reprimanded him and told him, Have a good rest. Leave the rest to me. With a bang, there was a faint muffled groan. Soon, the voice sounded again. Hey, brother Huaiji, I heard it all. The leader of the New Luo Group sneered. Aren't your words a bit too harsh? How about we be more straightforward? Huaisher asked softly. I'm out of the police station now. I'm still in one piece. No one took me to jail. But what are you going to do? Make the best of it? Or take advantage of the situation? It's up to you to choose. As soon as Huaisher became tough, the tone on the other end became helpless. Oh, look at what you're saying. I didn't pay attention. Since brother Huaiji is out, it's embarrassing for me to keep it. He paused for a moment and changed the topic. However, according to the rules of the underworld, if you take it and ask me to spit it out, you have to leave something for me, right? Okay. Huaisher smiled. How much do you want to leave? How about that? The leader of the new Luo group said, we could be considered friends after fighting. In the future, we can also... You're in a hurry to drink the wine? Huaishir interrupted him and told him, how about talking face to face? It's too insincere to talk over the phone. Okay, you come. The leader of the new Luo group understood the meaning in his words and sneered. I'll wait for you. After he gave an address, he hung up the phone. Huaishir put away his phone and put it in the pocket of his hospital gown. He was directly taken out of the hospital by the police and did not have time to change his clothes. Let's go, he said to Shangye. Don't let him wait for too long. Shangye, who had just removed the bandages and rushed over from the hospital, still had stitches on his face. When he heard Huaishir's words, he could not help but be stunned. Aren't you going to change your clothes? No need. White clothes are just right. With some stripes, it looks playful, dignified, and lively. Isn't that good? Huaishir waved his hand and nodded to the other leaders who had not left. Then, let's meet again tonight. We'll have a drink and catch up. Watching Huaishir get into the car, the people who stayed behind looked at each other. Next, there would be a good show to watch. The meeting place was called Cicada Live House. It was one of the most popular nightclubs in the Dongshan district of the capital. At the same time, it was also the place that Sheng Tianmu had assigned to Huaishir group. After robbing Huaishir of his things, he asked Huaishir to meet at his place. Shangye knew that this meeting would not end well. After calling for someone before getting out of the car, he took out a pistol from the toolbox, checked the bullets, and put it in his pocket. Are you so cautious? Huaishir looked at him from the passenger seat and shook his head. There's no need. Shangye reminded him seriously. The leader of new Luo group is not a good person. Who knows how many times he's done evil. He's very vicious. Boss, you have to be careful. Is that so? What a coincidence. I also like to do evil. We'll definitely have a lot in common. Huaishir pushed open the car door and walked up the stairs. During the day, when it was not time to open for business, the front was empty. There was no sign of the queue at night. It was dark behind the open door, and there were not many lights turned on. A few cleaners were still mopping the floor and doing chores. Only a waiter in uniform stood in front of the door and looked at Huaishir. I'm here to see the people from New Luo Group, Huaishir said. Lead the way. The waiter glanced at the two of them. When he saw the hospital gown on Huaishir, he frowned. I'm sorry, sir. Our humble shop does not serve disheveled guests. When he spoke, his expression was dignified and serious, as if he did not know who Huaishir was. However, he could not hide the panic in his eyes. Obviously, he had received instructions from the inside to show Huaishir who he was and make him lose face. Shangye was furious. He wanted to pull his collar, but Huaishir held his shoulder. He patted Shangye, indicating for him to calm down. Then, he turned around and asked, What's considered neat? The waiter was stunned. He was prepared to be beaten up, but he did not expect the other party to have such a good temper. He was at a loss for a long time before he continued. There has to be at least a tie. A tie? I have one. Huaishir smiled. I even took it from the Metropolitan Police Department. I don't know if it meets your standards. As he spoke, he reached out and took out a pair of shiny handcuffs from the pocket of his hospital gown. He lifted it up, shook it, and threw it to Shangye beside him. Help me put it on for him. Shangye smiled. Okay. The waiter's expression changed drastically. The two guards behind the door rushed out and were about to say something when they saw Huaishir casually push one of them forward, then another. In the sound of bones breaking, the two of them groaned at the same time. They involuntarily knelt on the ground and vomited blood from their lungs. They could no longer breathe. Look, there are two more ties. Put them on for this one. Huaishir lowered his head and glanced at the person beside his feet. Then, he turned around and ordered Shangye. Shangye grinned, revealing a mouth full of shark teeth. He smiled happily. Then, he punched the waiter's head. Ignoring the waiter's struggle, he pressed him against the bronze handle of the door. The handcuffs went around the waiter's neck cleanly. After 2 clicks, an iron tie was put on. Then, 2 uniform ties were put on the waiter's neck. His face was flushed red. Is this enough? Huaishir lowered his head and asked. The waiter panted with difficulty. His hands struggled wildly, but he couldn't break the handcuffs on his neck. He could only nod his head vigorously and plead with his eyes. Thus, Huaisher nodded, retracted his gaze, and walked through the door. Behind him, Shanya looked at his masterpiece carefully. He was proud of it and even took out his phone to take a photo. Then, he hurriedly followed him. Along the way, they were unobstructed. Finally, they saw Shanxia, who was thrown on the ground and panting beside the dance floor. There were also two people who were kicking and hitting him. In the booth, a middle-aged man smoking a cigar turned around and raised his eyebrows. "Hey, you're really here?" The leader of New Luo Group laughed mockingly. "Not bad looking. You're the pretty boy from Huaiji Group?" Huaisher continued forward as if he didn't hear anything. He just reached out and took out a gun from Shanya's pocket. Then, he aimed at the man's head and pulled the trigger. There was a bang. Then, the gun turned and aimed at the other people who still had a mocking smile on their faces. Bang, bang, bang. After 3 loud bangs, it was over. After the crisp sound of the bullet shells falling to the ground, there was no more noise. In the short silence, Huaisher lowered his head and stared at the mocking face. He nodded slightly. "Yes, I am," he replied politely. Then there were screams. Not far away, a few people collapsed on the ground. There were also people who wanted to rush up and take revenge for their leader. Shanya had already taken the gun from Huaisher's hand and showed them the shark teeth he was so proud of. In the blink of an eye, the fire lit up and went out. When the extreme Dao experts who were lying in ambush rushed out, everything was over. Only that man sat on the chair next to the corpse. He picked up the whiskey on the table and drank it. After putting down the bottle, he looked at them. "We're done talking. Both sides are satisfied with the result." The devil-like man sat in the dark. He raised his beast-like eyes and asked softly, "Now, is there anyone else who wants to talk to me?" Chapter 737. At this time, someone should stand up and shout, "Take revenge for our team leader." Then, everyone should be motivated to take revenge for their team leader and fight it out with the despicable people from Huaiji Group. But when that pair of eyes looked at him, even the air seemed to freeze. No one spoke. They were frozen on the spot. Even if they had 10 times more people and 100 times more firepower. "Does anyone have any objections?" Huaisher asked. "I prefer to speak frankly. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, you can say it directly." Along with his words, a scream came from outside the door, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. The members of Huaisher Group had already entered with their guns and cannons. They took control of everything from the outside to the inside. In the silence, no one spoke. Only the sound of blood dripping on the steps of the dance floor could be heard. The scarlet color spread and reflected in the man's eyes. The fleeting scarlet color seemed to have incredible magic, revealing the ferocious nature of the evil spirit under the exquisite disguise. It accumulated brutality and power, waiting to be released and liberated. It only needed a small spark. After some time, someone took a step back. Then there was the sound of a knife falling to the ground. Under Shangya's shout, everyone gradually put down their weapons and raised their hands with ashen faces. "Very good. It seems that everyone is reasonable." Huaisher nodded. Then, "Is there anyone in charge here?" "The leader of New Luo Group is gone." "Ruatu, right? Who is he?" Everyone looked at the man behind the crowd. The man's face suddenly turned ugly. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he closed it. He pushed the people in front of him away and walked forward. "I'm him," he said. Huaisher looked down at the beer bottle in his hand and suddenly asked, "Did you hear what I said to your team leader before?" Ruatu nodded with a pale face. "Very good. Then let's do it." Huaisher nodded. "Just like what I said before, according to New Luo's last wish, half of the store's revenue will be given to him in the future. How much will it cost to buy it all at once?" On the phone, Takashi pressed the calculator for a long time before he said, "According to the previous turnover and estimates in 4 years, excluding the other shareholders and operating expenses, we can earn about $40 million in the most ideal situation. Half, $25 million. Is there enough money in the account?" Huaisher asked. "The Yamada Society's follow-up payment has already arrived yesterday. It's enough for the time being." Otaku said. Call them then. You have to keep your word. Huaishir propped up his chin and casually waved his finger. Hire a few more eminent monks for him, buy a few dharma names, and find a good place for him to go to paradise. After a brief moment of silence, a clear notification sound came from the corpse's pocket. Everyone lowered their heads. Huaishir waved his hand and motioned for them to rest assured. When Ruo Tu took out his phone, he couldn't help but gasp. He was dumbfounded. The money was really in the account. Ruo Tu's face became more and more ugly. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Huaishir. He didn't think that the man in front of him was a righteous man or a saint who kept his promise, nor did he really think that he was a good man who kept his word. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand, why did he still have to do this? In the dead silence, Huaishir picked up the second bottle of bourbon that the waiter sent over with trepidation. He poured himself a drink and suddenly asked, "Now, can this store be considered as something that belongs to me?" Ruo Tu swallowed his saliva stiffly and nodded. "Then, we've completed a deal." Huaishir picked up another glass and put it in his hand. He raised his hand and clinked glasses with him. "Have a good deal?" That pair of quiet eyes looked at him quietly, waiting silently until he couldn't say anything anymore. He drank up the wine in the glass. "Have a good deal." "Very good. Now, it's time for the second question." Huaishir leaned on the chair, lowered his head, and looked at him carefully. He asked curiously, "Why didn't you wear a tie when you came to my store?" In the afternoon, before they could recover from the industrial dispute and the fight for territory, two pieces of news spread to every alliance member like a bomb. The first news was that the industrial dispute between New Luo Group and Huaiji Group was successfully resolved. New Luo Group got $25 million from Huaiji Group. Huaiji Group actually lowered their heads and obediently gave the money. For a time, the position of the late New Luo Group's leader in Jianghu was strengthened and promoted unprecedentedly. This last deal was really worth it. Every member of New Luo Group shared this joy. They held the red packets in their hands and felt proud for a moment. In contrast, the second news was really not worth mentioning. From then on, there was no more New Luo Group. Under the sincere request of all the leaders and the unanimous agreement and request of all the members, everyone resolutely carried out the new leader's orders. Then, the territory, manpower, and assets of New Luo Group were all incorporated under Huaiji Group. Not only did they take the money and jump ship, but they also expanded their territory. New Luo Group made a huge profit this time, and Huaiji Group lost a lot. Everyone praised the wise and far-sighted decision of the higher-ups. At this time, it had only been 1.5 hours since Huaishir walked out of the Metropolitan Police Department. The news of New Luo Group's leader's death had already been sent to the 4 big shots table. What does everyone think? Sheng Tianmu asked. There's no need to avoid my relationship with Huaiji. Although I'm the president, everyone can speak freely here. The authoritative editor wanted to discuss with everyone in the comment section. However, no one said anything. Under Sheng Tianmu's silent gaze, Huang Chuan put down the cigar in his hand and sighed. He took the lead to take on the role of the bad guy. Previously, the Tiger King Group could use revenge as an excuse. However, no matter what, they went overboard this time, right? In the past, internal conflicts without the permission of the 5 big shots would result in death. The female leader of the Luaha family nodded in agreement. Huaiji went overboard this time. What about Qinyi? Sheng Tianmu asked, what do you think? Qinyi long, or smoked expressionlessly. In the end, he put out the cigarette in the ashtray and said, New Luo Group is my people. This time, it's my fault for not disciplining them properly. I'm responsible. But Huaijiren killed his own ally without permission. That's really too unruly, isn't it? Sheng Tianmu finished his sentence for him. After a short silence, the old man sighed. I know everyone thinks that I value Huaiji and won't let anything happen to him. In fact, I plan to do this. However, I can't allow the rules of the alliance to be broken. I agree with your views on this matter. The others were stunned for a moment. If that's the case, Sheng Tianmu suddenly said, however, before that, I hope everyone can take a look at this. The secretary walked forward and distributed the information that had just been printed to everyone. Since last night, after the fall of Geo family, the remaining loyal members of Geo family have launched 4 counterattacks. However, these are not worth mentioning. They have all been extinguished. However, internal conflicts and conflicts within the alliance, including this time between Huaiji Group and New Luo Group, have occurred a total of 13 times. There were 11 instances where blood was spilled, and a total of 3 instances where names were made public. 2 of the group leaders have been punished by me personally. Their fingers are here. Shang Tianmu raised his hand and threw 2 small boxes on the table. His expression was calm. However, this is not something that can be solved with 2 fingers and a few heads. In the silence, everyone looked at the information in their hands and frowned. Even under the suppression of the alliance, the conflicts caused by Geo family's business still appeared. Wealth moved people's hearts. Of course, there was a reason for this. In fact, a few of the families had accumulated grudges before this. To be able to maintain stability in such a short period of time without causing more trouble, it could be said that they were strong enough. However, this could not hide the violation of the rules. Rules were the key to the survival of an extreme path organization. However, when they abandoned the laws of society and went into the dark, they relied more on the existence of rules. Only when there were rules could the game be played, and everyone's existence could last for a long time. Now, as the shadow of the president's order of nothingness pressed down day by day, under the suppression of the other organizations, everyone had already seen the signs of chaos within the alliance. This cannot be allowed to happen. The female general of Luoha family said coldly, "I think we need to deal with it strictly." I agree. Huang Chuan did not disagree, which was rare for him. Qin Yilong was silent for a long time. Then he smiled bitterly and shook his head. He looked at Shang Tianmu. "I think you already have a plan, President, right? I think that instead of using force to suppress them, it's better to follow the will of the people." Shang Tianmu opened his mouth and said, "The rules in the past were to maintain stability. However, in this situation, is stability still necessary? No one is confident. Since we can't see the future, we can only look at the present. Even if we suppress this wave, what can we do? It's better to let it go. Even if there are problems in the future, we can take care of them after this wave." The old man raised his head and said seriously, "It's true that rules are very important, but the essence of extreme Tao is the survival of the fittest. If we even forget this rule, what's the difference between us and being a tyrant in a rat's nest? Since someone is not satisfied with the distribution, then let's see what we can do." Huang Chuan instinctively wanted to object, but he did not say anything. Luoha Riko's expression changed, but he remained silent in the end. While thinking, Qin Yilong finally reacted. "Hey, old man, are you planning to train your troops before the president's order of nothingness? We're used to having a stable time. It'll take some effort to make them remember that they're extreme paths that can't be exposed. They still have to put their heads on their belts." Shang Tianmu knocked on his pipe and lowered his eyebrows. "Just treat it as training for the children. We have to let them know that we have some guts. As long as they don't use their guns, the damage won't be too big. It's all within the acceptable range. There's no need to talk about the things that have already been distributed. At the very least, everyone can take out the things that haven't been distributed. As for the dignity of the alliance, there's no need to worry. If this place is relaxed, other places can be tightened. Everyone can also take this opportunity to clean up the people with ulterior motives and take advantage of the situation. Prepare for war." As he spoke, Shang Tianmu unhurriedly laid out the rules that he had drawn up long ago. It was as if he had prepared everything long ago. No one knew how long he had been preparing this for. Moreover, it was obvious that he had already made arrangements for the division of benefits and the division of authority. There was no reason to object. Moreover, everyone was already dissatisfied with the current situation of the alliance. In the end, Huang Chuan, who was the slowest to react, finally remembered. Damn it, in the end, aren't they just protecting the paper effigy? They're even giving him a reward in disguise. Chapter 738. In the afternoon, in the office of Huaiji Trading Company. These should be the contents of the announcement at tonight's banquet. Sheng Tianmu's voice came from the phone. Huaiji, the news has been revealed to you. Don't drop the ball when the time comes. Okay, I understand. Huaixi replied respectfully. Thank you for your protection. I can't thank you enough. Sheng Tianmu seemed to laugh. It was hard to tell whether that low and vague voice was filled with joy or ridicule. It was full of meaning. Between you and me, there's no need to be so hypocritical. Sheng Tianmu said, Anyway, I've given you the opportunity you wanted. It's up to you whether you can grasp it or not. Isn't Yingzhou's tradition that the weak subdue the strong? Huaixi asked curiously. The president is so indulgent towards me. Isn't he afraid that I'm a shameless person who doesn't know how to be grateful and will backstab him? Don't joke around. Huaiji, who else can give you as much as I do? Sheng Tianmu sneered. You want to replace my position in the alliance? The current you is not enough. Such a naive dream. Let's talk about it in 3 years. Huaixi raised his eyebrows. I think it won't take a year. It's okay. We'll wait and see. The old man on the other end of the phone laughed. This time it was full of joy. Donghua Inner Circle is such a narrow place. When can it not accommodate you? The phone call ended. Huaixi looked up at the gradually dimming sunlight outside the window. He turned back and threw the phone on the table. He smiled at Shangye, who was fidgeting behind the table. Did you hear that? It's just a small matter. Don't worry about it. He patted Shangye's shoulder, indicating that he didn't need to worry. The matter of New Luo Group is over. You go back and cooperate with the people at the foot of the mountain to integrate the newcomers. It's best if they can be of use. If they can't, then just get rid of them. Tell them that Huaiji Trading Company can do more good deeds. They have enough beer, but Huaiji Trading Company doesn't raise useless people. They won't even quench the thirst of unrelated people. Yes. Shangye bowed and respectfully accepted the order. However, he didn't leave. He wanted to say something, but stopped. What's wrong? Huaixi raised his head. After hesitating for a long time, Shangye finally asked uneasily, Boss, what you said on the phone just now, is it true? What are you talking about? That's right. Shangye stuttered and finally mustered up the courage to repeat Huaishi's words. It's the part where the lower one succeeds the upper one and replaces the president. Do you really plan to? Oh, yes, that's right. Huaixi twirled the pen in his hand, not hiding anything. Although I have an agreement with the old man, I'm afraid the honeymoon period of this cooperation will only last until the end of the General Assembly, right? At that time, without external pressure, the old man would not allow a young boy to jump around in front of him. Coincidentally, I don't intend to let a bunch of old fellows ride on my head. He paused for a moment and asked softly, The president will take turns. Next year, it will be my house. Is there anything wrong with that? Shangye was stunned. His jaw dropped. What's wrong? Huaixi laughed. You can't accept it? No. Shangye was so anxious that his speech was incoherent. He even changed the way he addressed himself. In the end, he was so agitated that the scar on his face turned red. He bowed abruptly and replied in a loud voice, I'm sorry. He bowed deeply and said, No matter what happens, I will follow you for the rest of my life. Huaixi paused for a moment. He raised his eyebrows as if he was stunned. Soon he smiled, stood up, and patted him on the shoulder. Don't be so agitated, Shangye. I know your loyalty to me. I'll be counting on you in the future. Shangye nodded and bowed deeply again. Only then did he bid farewell excitedly and turn to leave. After the office door closed, Huaishi's smile gradually disappeared. It was replaced by unconcealable astonishment. Returning to his chair, he frowned. His consciousness used young Master Ming's stigmata as a bridge to explore the other cage of dreams that he had hidden. Then he realized that it was a mess. While he was busy undercover, Huaixi did not pay attention to the group of crows. As a result, they had completely gone crazy from playing. Every day, they would secretly disguise themselves as normal crows after using source substance and blend in with the local crows. Then, relying on their physique and strength, They would frequently appear in the streets, alleys, convenience stores, video stores, and bookstores. In the end, they would secretly bring back a huge pile of unspeakable items that piled up like a mountain. There was even a group of fanatics who secretly pulled out the wires and picked up old televisions and video players that people did not want from the streets. They would watch it day and night. As for the other group of crows that did not participate much, they were not good either. Now, they were circling the phones that Huaishir had left for them to play with. Then, their little claws skillfully swiped across the screen. Along with the colors of the various mobile game interface, they were enthusiastically cheering. Once they got SSR, they would be as happy as a lark. Moreover, these guys had learned their lesson. They were afraid that they would be discovered secretly spending money on Huaishir's account, so they relied on picking up coins from the streets and going to convenience stores to buy top-up cards. Who the hell knew how they managed to activate these things at the counter? Moreover, these crows would take turns coming. Every time they came, it would be as if they had lost their parents. When they encountered a group of crows that sold goods, they would run around with their phones in their mouths, as if they wanted to see every single one of them. Very quickly, they would be pinned to the ground and beaten up. But this was F**king enough. Huaishir calculated for a moment. Women, those who drew cards, and those who soaked in the decaying dream poison pool every day. Her large group of women, gambling, and poison had all been gathered together. What kind of group was this? Huaishir was so angry that his face turned green. He wanted to immediately start a rectification movement, but now he did not have the time to do that. Most of his energy was focused on the lower level of the dream cage, the newly opened area. Within the projection of young Master Ming's stigmata, a group of vague human silhouettes appeared. The degree of clarity varied, but one of the clearest faces left a deep impression on Huaishir. Bueno, damn, why is his projection here? Huaishir was completely dumbfounded. The cage of dreams was bound to his stigmata, and Weno's projection appeared here. This meant that he was already within the range of young Master Ming's destiny. What was going on? Isn't this very simple? Tongyi's figure appeared beside him. Her smile became strange. Don't tell me you've forgotten. Huaishir. The growth of a child is a symbol of the growth of a child. The growth of a race can be placed above the infernal realm, but why can't it be placed above humans? The beast trait itself had the characteristics of the abyss. Didn't Maki Rachimi prove this before? She was only able to step onto the path of ascension because of your guidance. Now, young Master Ming's destiny also has a part of her. You mean? Huaishir was dumbfounded. Speaking of which, in Ingzhou's extreme Tao, the word kinship is not only a form of respect for the boss, but also a form of father. Tongyi's smile became more and more gloating. Those are your children, Huaishir. Ha 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 ha. That's not right. Why wasn't there before? Huaishir couldn't understand it all. Do you know how much weight an ascender's soul can carry with it the weight of a normal consciousness? Previously, the Huaishir group was the size of a pigeon's egg. There were 5 or 6 people, 7 or 8 guns. Taking everything into account, there were more than 100 people. Tongyi said, after you merged with the new Luo group, the Huaishir group's existence barely reached the standard of a race. Young Master Ming regarded them as a whole and included them in her range. Huaishir stared silently at the projection of the Huaishir group in front of him. After a long time, he slowly raised his head as realization dawned on him. In other words, that's right. Once they pledge their loyalty to you, the members of the Huaishir group will definitely be included in young Master Ming's destiny. This will not only increase young Master Ming's strength, but also strengthen your control over them. Tongyi whispered softly into his ear, just like a demon's whisper. You don't need me to tell you what to do next, do you, Student Huaishir, the Level 12 illegal organization? It was as if a brand new door had been pushed open. Huaishir's eyes lit up. After a long time, Huaishir opened his eyes from his nap and raised his hand. After the young Master Ming's sacred mark broke through the disguise, the origin substance stirred, calling for the cage of dreams in the distance to descend and fall into his hand. Huaishir's hand shook slightly, and from the empty birdcage, wisps of white mist spread out. The bubbles from the decaying dream gradually spread, quietly covering the entire Huai Shi group. The origin substance fluctuations quickly disappeared along with the birdcage. Huai Shi still felt that it wasn't enough. He opened his hand, and a burning banner appeared. The door to the bone-burying sanctuary opened, and as the banner fell, it overlapped here. The decaying dream and the bone-burying sanctuary, two layers of power from the same source, covered each other and quickly hid their traces, completely covering the headquarters of the Huai Shi group. Next, within this range, he would be able to use young Master Ming's power better. With his heavenly will and miracle in hand, Huai Shi could completely control his current organization and manpower, and even go one step further, eliminate the hidden dangers that he hadn't discovered before. He picked up the banner that had fused with his signature pen, flipped open the notebook on the table, and began to quickly organize the situation in front of him and his next plan. The upcoming conflict within the Alliance would directly affect his right to speak within the Alliance, and the peace order that would follow would be a harsh test for the entire Dan Wave Inner Circle. Ingzhou's Gong family, Wu family, the Astronomical Association and Green Sun, the conflict between the Alliance and other extreme Daos, and even the hybrids in the Dan Wave Inner Circle. Very quickly, the originally tangled mess was sorted out clearly. Before the peace order was issued, the Gong family and Wu family wouldn't put too much attention on this group of extreme Daos that even they themselves looked down on. And when the hybrids' rebellion and the disaster that the God City would bring in the future spread out, the Dan Wave Inner Circle could still maintain a state of self-destruction. Even if the time was short, it was still enough to grasp the opportunity. First, gradually control the power within the Alliance and resist the influence of the peace order. After completely eliminating the hidden dangers of the God City, he would be able to calmly bring a new order to the Dan Wave Inner Circle. If he wanted to plan for the long term, then he would have to consider drinking water, food, medicine, education, work, and so on. Each of these was harder to deal with than the last, and each was more sensitive than the last. Why did it feel more and more like a rebellion plan? Huai Shi rubbed his chin and finally realized. It could be foreseen that if he didn't handle it well, the consequences would be very tragic. This is a job that will offend people. Huai Shi whistled happily and felt that old Master Lin's words made sense. For someone like him who liked to attract hatred, it would be a pity if he didn't take the path of evil. With such a large amount of hatred, it would be a pity if he couldn't get a share of it. However, should he arrange an escape route for the time being? Can the Astronomical Association cover such a big matter? Huai Shi murmured curiously. It's still within the scope of a solution. With your ability and connections, the Federal Bureau of Investigation won't send you to the London court and then throw you into the trench prison. In the monitor, AI Ching, who had been watching coldly until now, finally spoke up. I'm afraid the best result will be that the bastards will obtain temporary order, and you will lose your position and all the trust, scram back to the ivory tower to teach, and be blacklisted for life. Everyone will have a bright future. Is that so? That sounds good. Huai Shi nodded, and after thinking for a long time, he suddenly laughed. When the time comes, I won't be able to go out. Will you come to see me often? In the silence, no one responded. They couldn't be bothered with him. Don't ignore me. After his originally chaotic thoughts settled down, Huai Shi's mood suddenly became cheerful. Speaking of which, being a teacher is actually very interesting. Did you know that I have two students? One is mischievous and looks easy to bully. The other is too serious and easy to trust, making people feel embarrassed to bully him. Although they both have a little flaw, they are both very cute. I think, in the future, they will definitely become people who can change this world for the better. Yes, they still need a little more effort. Huai Shi raised his hand, and his thumb and index finger made a gap, his smile calm and satisfied. After a long time, AI Ching finally spoke again. You know what you're doing, right, Huai Shi? Very clear. Huai Shi nodded. Why? You should know that everything that happens here has nothing to do with you. It's probably because of the good guy mentality. Huai Shi scratched his head, embarrassed, because I want to do something good, I want to be self-satisfied, and I want to try to prevent some bad things from happening. In this way, this world can become a better place. AI Ching didn't say anything. Huai sure was puzzled. You're not going to persuade me. Will persuading you work? There's no need to waste time on meaningless nonsense. AI Ching's tone was flat, cold, and alienated. I hope you can understand that people are always responsible for what they do. Sorry. Huaisher put his hands together, sincerely grateful. Thank you. The call ended, and there was no more sound. 10 minutes later, in a dark alley in Dongbua Inner Circle. What the hell? Tony, who had taken off the horse mask and changed his appearance, held the phone in disbelief. That bastard Huaisher quit. To be exact, he's going to take root in Dongbua Inner Circle, infiltrate the inner circle of Green Sun, and carry out a long-term mission. The voice on the other end of the phone was full of encouragement. In short, do your best. Teacher Tony, the safety of the present realm depends on you. The phone hung up. On the crowded street, Tony looked down at the display of the end of the call on the phone, and tears were about to flow out uncontrollably. How can a poor tool like me live so that you too will be satisfied? Chapter 739. In just one day, so many things had happened since the president took office. The continuous changes made people unable to figure out what was going on. In the morning, a bunch of people were arrested. The low-level members were still thinking that they would be severely punished this time. Those with criminal records planned to avoid the limelight. In the end, before lunch was over, they were released. It seemed that they had made some kind of deal with the Metropolitan Police Department. In the end, before the afternoon was over, New Luo Group was gone. Those who were packing up and preparing to run away suddenly felt that something must have happened this time. However, nothing happened. Huai Shiki Group easily swallowed all the properties of New Luo Group. From the beginning to the end, it was smooth as if both sides had rehearsed it countless times. Before the banquet started, there was a new piece of news circulating among the Kyakudo. Hey, have you heard about New Luo Group? Yes, the leader died and was swallowed up. Yes, that's right. In fact, long before this, New Luo Group's Ruo Tu and cadres were already part of Huai Shiki Group. The leader was already a mere figurehead. Think about it. Otherwise, how could it be so smooth? They didn't even shout a slogan of revenge and surrendered. Sigh, poor leader. Until death, he was still a muddle-headed ghost. In all kinds of messy rumors, there were people who vividly described how, when Huaisher walked through the door, his body shook. New Luo Group's Ruo Tu pulled out a gun and shot his boss from behind. He knelt down and asked for surrender. It was as if he was there and saw it with his own eyes. It couldn't be true. There were also people who said that when Huai Shiki Group took over the Fujimoto Group, he was kind enough to treat everyone in the inner circle of Dongbua Group to beer. At that time, New Luo Group's Ruo Tu slammed the table in front of everyone and said, "This is really my master." And this Huai Shiki Group's origin was not ordinary. He had a handsome face and a cruel personality. It was as if Shitindaji had been reborn. He was like a demon descending from the sky. He was really a god in the human world. In order to not let people guard against him, he even pretended to be a Tauren. He killed all the people who knew the truth in the past and threw their ashes into Kyoto Bay. At the entrance of Tenmu's house, the younger brothers who were driving for their big brother were squatting by the door, sharing cigarettes and vividly narrating the fantasy version that they had heard from their 7 aunts and 8 aunts. The young man who had come to get a cigarette pursed his lips when he heard this. If you ask me, it's not as mysterious as you guys. Isn't the paper effigy just an ordinary person? It has 1 nose and 2 eyes just like you guys. How can it be as powerful as the rumors say? TSK, you speak as if you have seen it before. The man who just spoke was not happy and stared over. The young man was stunned, as if he was stumped by the question. To be honest, I've seen it before. The man who spoke chuckled. After taking a puff of his cigarette, he said with a smile of exultation, "That day when the Huai Ji Group was distributing beer, it was the leader of the Huai Ji Group who personally gave it to me. I asked if there was ice. He even said, 'I'm sorry, I've already given them out.' Let's continue drinking next time. That beer tastes really good. At this point, the man smacked his lips, savoring the taste of the free beer. Really? The person beside him was in disbelief. Nonsense. Who in the underworld doesn't know that I'm who doesn't lie? The man just now patted his chest and widened his eyes. How can that be fake? The young man who came to get a cigarette finished his cigarette and sat on the stairs to the side with a smile as he listened, until the person beside him pushed his shoulder and pointed at the man with the scar on his face. Your boss is calling for you. Okay, thank you. The young man stood up, patted his knee, and waved to the others. Let's continue chatting next time. I'll take my leave first. Amidst the sounds of agreement and farewell, the young man smiled and walked toward the fierce man who was waiting at the door. Only one person who wanted to go to the toilet, after chatting for a long time, turned around and saw that the fierce man actually lowered his head respectfully to the young man. Boss, there's no cooked food in the convenience store nearby, only some bread. Weno picked up the bag in his hand and respectfully handed it over. Bread is fine too. I'm not that picky. Huaisher picked out 2 from the bag. You can have a rest too. Didn't you say the banquet is coming soon? It'll be a mess then. I'm afraid I won't be able to eat. It's better to eat a little first, so I won't have to argue with people on an empty stomach. Huaisher leaned against the tree in front of the door and looked at the people coming and going in front of the door as if he had nothing to do with it. Some people looked over curiously, but their gazes quickly moved away. At most, they would say in their hearts, which underling is so unruly, running to the front and being an eyesore. Meanwhile, the row of fierce men in front of the door didn't dare to look in that direction at all. They just bowed mechanically to welcome him. But soon, Huaisher finished the bread. He folded the bag and stuffed it into his pocket. After wiping his mouth, he took the bottle of tea from Weno. After drinking 2 mouthfuls, he finally felt something in his stomach. It's about time. I'll go in first. If you're bored outside, just do whatever you want. There's no need to stand here. Huaisher turned around and instructed. After taking 2 steps, he patted his head and turned back. All right, I feel bad about smoking someone else's cigarette for free. Later, help me buy a few bottles of beer, cold ones. He chuckled softly. Just say that I ran out of ice last time, and this is to replenish them. Weno looked confused, but he still nodded respectfully. Huaisher had already walked forward. With his hands in the pockets of his suit, he casually waved goodbye to the drivers who were looking at him in shock from afar and stepped into the banquet. In the twilight, the mansion was brightly lit. In the hall, on both sides of the 2 long tables, people who had already taken their seats were chatting and laughing. The servants who served tea and water were running back and forth. After Huaisher stepped in, the original clamor paused for a moment, then returned to normal. This time, quite a number of people looked over, breaking the previous coldness and alienation, and smiled warmly. Your status has risen, Mr. Huaisher. Lawrence, who was sitting cross-legged behind the table in the corner, flicked the ash from his cigarette and said generously, You did well this time. Which job are you referring to? Huaisher sat down next to him. All of them. Lawrence glanced at Huaisher with admiration. It's said that you can build a relationship with the people of Looming Hall in prison. You're really amazing. Don't beat around the bush, okay? If you want to know the details, just say it. Huaisher rolled his eyes. It was not strange that Green Day was curious about this. It was impossible for the Alliance not to have spies in the Metropolitan Police Department. If they wanted to get someone out, they had to investigate the situation. In the end, everyone was messed up. You were the only one who was fine. Not only did you have wine, pork, and rice to eat, you even met the people of Looming Hall. If it were not for the trust in Li Hua and never doubted her, it would not be strange if Shengtiema ordered Huaisher to be caught and sunk in Kyoto Bay. Besides, there was nothing to hide about this kind of thing. Huaisher might as well tell the truth. The person from Looming Hall is a woman. Well, half of the truth was the truth anyway. Lawrence was stunned for a long time. He looked at Huaisher's face and saw the ash from his cigarette fall on the table. Only then did he react. He sighed from the bottom of his heart. If you ask me, your face is King ridiculous. I was born with it. I can't do anything about it. Huaisher asked calmly. Is anything else you want to ask? There was nothing to ask. Lawrence spread his hands helplessly. But your movements have been too big recently. Everyone is a little panicked. You know, Huaishur was silent for a moment and replied, the next movements may be even bigger. Lawrence thought for a moment and comforted him. The matter of new Luo group is not a big deal. Although you're now a member of the Alliance, you're also a member of Green Day. If Shengdiemu's request is too much, you have room to bargain. In fact, this is all my own decision. Huaishur did not put the blame on Shengdiemu's head. There is always something urgent. I have to think of ways to increase my strength. Before he finished speaking, a pair of eyes emitting green light fell on Lawrence. Lawrence felt his hair stand on end. What's wrong? No, Green Day can't just watch its own people suffer, right? Huaishur came over and rubbed his small hands. Can you give me some support? Lawrence couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. Support? What kind of support do you want? He asked. As long as you nod your head, I'll send you 100 descendants who are wanted by the entire realm tomorrow. Men, women, old, and young you can choose. I guarantee that they can fight, and I guarantee that they'll be fierce. But can you handle them? Huaishur also began to roll his eyes. If Lawrence really dared to send them like this, the black letter from the Astronomy Association might have arrived before the people arrived. Is there nothing that is not hot? He asked. Otherwise, why would it be called Green Day? Lawrence said, what Green Day lacks is not people who can fight and commit crimes. Huaishur, what it lacks is people like you who can see the light. Green Day will not stand by and watch you, nor will it help you too much on the surface. You have not reached the point where you have to flee to the ends of the earth. Absolutely. Green Day advised him to abandon evil and promote good. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, Huaishur would have immediately started Green Day's light. This was strange. Okay, Huaishur gave up on continuing to pull wool from Green Day. He could only say, I will find a way to go to Mount Tiango and pull in a sponsorship. This was his goal. From the beginning, he did not count on Green Day's help. He was just using it as a foundation. On the one hand, he was clear about Green Day's nature. On the other hand, he was clear about his own status. Who did Huaishur think he was? He was an out-and-out newcomer. How many days had it been since he submitted his proof of allegiance? It was equivalent to a newcomer who had just signed a contract coming to the company and wanting the leaders to focus on training and arrangement. Did he really think Green Day was his home? Lawrence was stunned for a moment. He immediately remembered the background of Huaishur and was slightly enlightened. Since ancient times, the relationship between Sumo and Heavenly Dog had been close and inseparable. Sumo wrestlers who won the strength of 100 men and all kinds of rumors about Heavenly Dog Sumo were simply endless. In addition to being the holy land of the cooking demon, Mount Tiango itself was also a pivotal force on the border of Yingzhou. It was inextricably linked with various local religions, temples, and even hell. It could be called a legendary figure, a famous sect in Yingzhou's martial arts world, and the veteran backbone of the Five Mountain Sword sect. Even if Huaishur and Mount Tiango had nothing to do with each other, Huaishur was an old acquaintance. It would be convenient to have the help of the Dragon Mountain Workshop. Moreover, he was just using Mount Tiango as a cover for himself. He didn't really want to take anything. At most, he would let the Dragon Mountain Workshop send an empty package over, and that would be it. It was just like money laundering. You always had to have a source that you could take out to be convenient for the next step. In this way, a part of his equipment and strength could be washed clean. However, since he was already here, he couldn't go back empty-handed, right? Huaishur raised his head again. His green eyes looked at Lawrence next to him. He was determined to get something back. Then, he heard a delicate voice calling out to him. Huaishur, here. In the seat of honor, Sheng Tian Mu Li Hua smiled shyly at him. Her eyes moved and she waved enthusiastically. Come quickly. Chapter 740. I'm not going anymore. Goodbye. Huaishur instinctively wanted to get up and leave. However, they were still in the Heavenly Mu family. Under everyone's gaze, Huaishur could only walk over with a cold face and angrily reprimand her. Lower your voice. Making a big fuss, you don't have any self-restraint. Aya, I'm just too excited. Miss Li Hua's cheeks flushed red as she shyly lowered her head. Seeing the paper figurine in his arms reprimand the Heavenly Mu family's beloved daughter like a grandson in front of everyone, who knew how many people's eyes popped out of their sockets. Even Lawrence was dumbfounded and his hand was almost burned by the cigarette. But at this moment, the American tramp deeply felt the inequality between people as well as the vastness of the path of a cowherd. How many days had it been? The first day they met, the second day they entered a small room, and the third day they were already glued to each other like glue? How did you do it? The people at the side saw it even more clearly. After the paper figurine in his arms sat down, his face was cold the entire time. Miss Li Hua poured tea and asked about his well-being, but he did not give her any face. Instead, he ordered Miss Li Hua around as if he was reprimanding a maid. This was too much. As for Huaishur, his eyes were about to roll to the sky. "Did you miss me?" Li Hua asked softly from the side. Huaishur squeezed out the words from between his teeth. "I missed you to death. Can't you hope for me to be a little better? Can you not King do all these fancy things?" Huaishur lowered his voice. "I didn't want a real big sister to protect a bastard like you. It's fine if you don't repay me, but can't you let my reputation be a little better? Aren't I thinking for your sake? Otherwise, people will say that after you hooked up with the Annie from the looming mansion, you forgot about the Li Hua by the Daming Lake." Yu Dongri raised his fan to cover his mouth and said softly, "That old man Heavenly Mu also wants face. I sacrificed my body. Isn't that also supporting you? Please change to a real one. Thank you." Huaishur looked straight ahead and was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. "If you have something to say, say it. Do you have any news on the future whereabouts of the Divine City? After a day of hard work, we found a few cloning pods, but we didn't catch the main body. The guy hid very well. However, we did destroy a laboratory and found something. You could take it back to report." Under the table, Yu Dongri handed over a bottle. It was empty except for 2 capsules of pills. Huaishur shook it slightly, but did not open it. Instead, he stuffed it into his pocket. "Is this the legendary panacea? The main ingredients are flour, vitamins, and a little methamphetamine. You can feel your body getting a little better after eating it, but once the effects wear off, it's gone. It's just a placebo used to fool people." "Are you trying to say that Divine City infiltrated Danbo inner circle in the future just to make fake medicine? Who knows? She caught a few of his loyal followers, and they all firmly believe that the Divine City could cure them in the future. As long as people with advanced complications could survive, they would believe whatever others said. There's no way to rule out that guy using the power of hell to do something." Yu Dongri reminded him. "He remembered you last time. Remember to be careful." Huaishur frowned. "You've loaded the file so many times, but you still can't find where he's hiding?" The smile on Yu Dongri's face stiffened visibly. He looked back at him with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong?" Huaishur asked. "No, I'm just surprised." Yu Dongri said, "You seem to be able to guess it every time. If I didn't know you from the past, I would have suspected that you had something to do with the higher-ups of the Central Command Bureau. Don't interrupt." Yu Dongri suddenly had the urge to roll his eyes. There's a limit to loading the file. If the Bifrost was really omnipotent, would the present realm still be like this? Besides, I'm just a retired guard. I can't jump too far by relying on one-sided resonance. Huaishur didn't understand at first, but he immediately sensed the unfinished meaning in his words. His expression became serious. "You mean that Divine City will actually be on guard against the Bifrost in the future? That's why we have to be careful and on guard." Yu Dongri said, "So-called conspiracies mostly leave traces. But if you take advantage of the situation, it'll be very troublesome to find clues. It's not that Divine City wants to provoke a riot in the future, but it's the inevitable result after brewing for so long. Don't you feel that the smell of gunpowder in the Donbua inner circle has become more and more obvious in the past 2 days?" Huaishur was silent. Uncontrolled destruction, desperate crimes, and desperate struggles. Not to mention the private fights and drunken disputes among the extreme paths. In just a few days, Huaishur was almost numb to this news. He had never lived in the Doomsday inner circle before, so he didn't know if this state was normal. But now, even under the powerful suppression of the extreme paths, the Doomsday inner circle still couldn't calm the restless undercurrents. It was like a barrel of explosives under ones, but one spark or two sparks wouldn't have any effect. But what if there were 100 or 1,000? Once the order collapsed, as long as someone instigated it in the dark, a tragic bloodbath might erupt. After losing the restraint of the rules, the boundaries of morality were not worth mentioning in front of instinct. Fanaticism, anger, pain, and fear. Under these chaotic catalysts, everything fragile in front of him would fall apart in the end. If he wanted to solve it, he had to cut the Gordian knot with a swift knife. Everything shouldn't have fallen to this extent. Yu Dongri said softly, "We don't have much time." Why sure? I know. Why sure held the teacup and drank the bland tea. He raised his head and looked at the place at the very top. When the banquet was almost done, headquarters longevity heavenly, I finally put down his chopsticks first and clapped his hands. A crisp sound spread out. In an instant, the originally scattered noise disappeared without a trace. Everyone stopped what they were doing and hurriedly wiped the corners of their mouths, straightened their collars, turned sideways, and listened to instructions. Relax. There's no need to be so serious. Longevity heavenly, I waved his hand and said casually, I've called everyone here today other than eating a meal and bonding. The main thing I want to talk about is the incident that happened this afternoon. For a moment, everyone subconsciously looked at Huaishur. It's here. It's here. The highlight of the show is here. The punishment segment that the people loved to see and hear was here. But longevity heavenly, I changed the topic and said with emotion, just as everyone knows, there was a little friction that no one expected, and in the end, it caused both sides to be hurt. Hurting the harmony is secondary, but who doesn't know that life is precious? I understand that everyone has been having a hard time recently, and I don't intend to be too harsh on this. No. You can be as harsh as you want. It's best to be a little more harsh. For a moment, the people sitting below who were waiting for Huaishur to be unlucky were anxious. They wanted nothing more than to jump out on behalf of the Alliance and replace President Longevity Heavenly. I to strike this bastard. But then, Longevity Heavenly, I changed the topic. However, although this matter has passed, it doesn't mean that the Alliance will condone this kind of thing to happen again and again. We have to solve the problem from the root. After a few twists and turns, when no one could figure out what this old man was selling as gourd, Longevity Heavenly, I said with a pained expression, as the president of the Alliance, this old man has witnessed such a dispute, and it really hurts in my heart. But in the end, you can't blame everyone. It's because the economy is in a bad state now, and even the extreme Taoists can't survive. If people want to live, they have to eat. But even if this old man treats everyone here every day, how many people can I feed? Old people like to talk a lot. Once they started talking nonsense, they couldn't stop. From the economy to business, and then from young people to having fewer children, and finally after scolding the incompetent prime minister and the cabinet Longevity Heavenly, I finally got to the main topic. As the saying goes, it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. After discussing with the other leaders, this old man has decided to take out all the properties that my family hasn't distributed for a long time, and each family will give up a part of their territory and interests. In the end, all of this is what you see in front of you. After a sudden uproar, a huge map and charts slowly unfolded behind Longevity Heavenly Eye. After countless assets were piled up together, it was almost about to emit a dazzling light, dazzling everyone. 31 Chinga billiard rooms, more than 20 custom shops, 9 theaters, 2 art offices, 11 casinos for construction companies, 19 factories for cinemas, and 12 street stores, bars, nightclubs, hotels, investment companies, temples, docks, frozen fresh food, wineries, clothing, real estate, film and television, entertainment, electronics. It was almost everything. Almost all of my family's businesses have been placed on this list, in addition to the huge behemoths that the other 4 big shots have slightly loosened their grip on. In the end, It gathered into a prize pool that dazzled all the gamblers. I know, some people think that we old guys eat from the bowl, but still occupy the pot and become their way of making money. They always think that we are too stingy and can't even share some soup and water with you. Longevity heavenly, I raised his eyes and said indifferently, don't blame the monks for not having enough gruel, everyone. Are you the group of trash members who compete with each other in terms of loudness every day? Since you've become the extreme Tao, you can take whatever you want. Now, I've placed the opportunity in front of you. How much you can take will depend on your own ability. You want the opportunity, I've given it to you. According to the rules of the Alliance, you can gamble at will. Within 3 days, as long as you can take it, it will belong to you. In a dead silence, everyone stared blankly at the icon. They breathed heavily and pursed their lips. Their eyes were burning red, but no one dared to speak. Longevity heavenly, I looked down at those sluggish faces and raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? All of you are not talking. You're actually modestly declining now. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The things are placed in front of you. Don't you have anything to say? He paused for a moment, glanced at the crowd below, and asked casually, Why Jijun, is there anything you like? Tell us about it. Everyone is so benevolent. Maybe we'll give it to you. Me? Huaishir was stunned for a moment, then raised his head and looked at the map and chart above, and played the role of a supporting actor for Old Man Longevity Heavenly. Is it really just casually choosing? Longevity Heavenly, I shook his head. Nonsense, do you think I'll specifically use this kind of thing to tease you? No, what I mean is, since the things are good, why do you have to choose? Huaishir suddenly laughed and asked seriously, What are you talking about? Can't you take all of them? Chapter 741. Why do you have to make a choice? Under Sheng Tianmu's question, Huaishir straightforwardly expressed his attitude. Very simple, I want all of them. His fingertips casually swirled the wine cup. He raised his head and looked around. With a mocking smile, he said, Who agrees? Who opposes? In the big hall, it was even quieter than before. However, in the silence, there was an eruption of anger like a volcano. Many pairs of eyes were burning red with uncontrollable anger. He said in front of everyone that he wanted to take all the benefits for himself and did not intend to leave any soup for himself. It was fine if he was so arrogant. However, who was the paper effigy? How dare he say such words here? Paper effigy, don't go overboard. In the silence, near the seat of honor, someone finally could not restrain his anger. He slammed the table and reprimanded. Do you really think you can cover the sky with one hand? There are rules in the Alliance. You have so many assets. Even if no one fights with you, do you have so many people? At this moment, someone added in a sinister tone, If your appetite is too good, you will die from overeating. In an instant, countless angry reprimands and curses spread. The entire hall was engulfed in anger and gathered on one person. However, Sheng Tianmu drank his tea calmly as if he did not hear anything. Although Li Hua had told him that the turning point of this dangerous situation was mostly dependent on the white paper effigy, the most he could do was to create an opportunity. He was not the white paper effigy's biological father, so why did he have to worry about everything for him? Did he have to give all the assets and subordinates that he had built up from scratch to this fellow? He had given him the opportunity. He had taken out his assets. The opportunity to expand was right in front of him. However, the paper effigy was courting death. Could he give up his old face and not step under his feet? What was he after? If he really could not help the paper effigy, although Sheng Tianmu felt regretful, he could only find another way. On the other hand, the paper effigy was extremely calm. He allowed those people to reprimand him as he calmly played with the thumb-sized wine cup in his hand. He only opened his mouth when the angry voices gradually faded away. What the friend said just now is very reasonable. The lack of manpower is indeed a problem. He opened his mouth and said seriously, however, the solution to this problem is even simpler. For example, he changed the topic and looked at the people at the banquet with a smile. Does anyone want these properties? Money was a good thing. No one would push out of the door, right? It can't be, right? Just as the others were about to explode in anger from her sarcastic words, Huaishur quickly added, "If that's the case, I have a good idea." He raised his voice and raised a finger. "As long as everyone can cooperate with me and work together, I can let everyone take down the business that they want. You don't have to fight or suffer any losses. You don't have to be on edge. You can even take a step further and greatly expand your strength. You can become the core of the alliance." Silence descended once again. Those angry voices suddenly stopped. Everyone's eyes widened as if they had seen a ghost. 100,000 question marks floated up from his head. He felt that there was something wrong with this person. How could there be such a ridiculous method in this world? Huaishur Noheim, what kind of dream are you having? Hey, Huaishur Noheim, don't keep us in suspense. A rough man opened his eyes wide. If you have something to say it quickly. Don't be anxious. I'll tell you in detail. Huaishur smiled and slowly got up. He walked to the middle of the hall and suddenly turned around to ask the man who had urged him. "Excuse me, what is this friend's name? Which group are you from?" "Kuroda Group, Kuroda Kigo." The rough man said coldly. "What's wrong?" "No, nothing. I'm just asking." Huaishur smiled and continued to ask. Then, has leader Kuroda ever thought about making the Kuroda Group bigger and stronger, taking over these industries and becoming the backbone of the alliance? You can sit on the wealth and continue to contribute to the alliance? Kuroda Kigo's expression froze. He originally wanted to ignore it, but when he saw Huaishur looking at him with a faint smile, the anger in his heart surged again. He immediately replied with a trembling voice, "Of course. I want to. Don't tell me that no one here has the same thought." "Then it's simple." Huaishur nodded. "Now, there is such an opportunity in front of you. As long as you agree, this goal could be achieved. Will you refuse?" "Of course I will." Kuroda Kigo slammed the table and realized that something was wrong. He immediately retracted his words and only said, "Of course I will, cough, cough. Listen to it first." "Of course." Huaishur's smile became brighter and brighter. He walked over, bent down, and leaned against the table. Then, he leaned closer and used a clear voice that everyone could hear to give him a suggestion. "This method is actually very simple, Kuroda Group leader. As long as you change the name of your gang to Huaishur Group Kuroda Branch, then after I take over the industries, I'll share them with you and everyone else. Everyone will share them together. Won't that solve the problem?" When he said this, Huaishur could not help but smile. He raised his voice. "There will be no need to use weapons or fight. Everyone will share equally. At that time, won't it be wonderful for brothers to love each other?" Dead silence, dead silence, dead silence. The air seemed to have frozen, and time seemed to have stopped. Only the curious expressions quickly twisted in the burning anger. They turned livid, unable to hold back their anger. At the head of the table, Sheng Tengu, who had been attracted by Huaishur's brilliant plan, almost had his neck stuck out. He could not help but raise his hand and press it against his old face. He felt a strange feeling from the bottom of his heart. Shut the F***ck up. Why didn't I realize that this guy is so good at offending people? Later, when everyone was riled up and tearing this guy apart, should he be cheering them on from the side? You be ***starred. The moment he reacted, Kuroda Kigo's face turned so red that it was almost dripping blood. He roared furiously and got up to pull Huaishur's collar. But the moment his fingers touched the collar, everyone's vision blurred. It was a loud bang. The long table collapsed from middle. The leftovers flew up, and the tatami mat shook violently. And Kuroda Kigo's head had already been pulled by Huaishur. It smashed through the table and sank deep into the floor. A violent tremor hit him. His vision turned black, and he instantly lost his breath. Only his legs were twitching, proving that he was still alive. This is not good. This is not good. Isn't it a little too unruly to use force during the president's banquet? Huaishur slowly let go of his hand and turned around with a smile. I was forced to fight back just now. Everyone, you have to be my witness. Witness my ass. If it weren't for the Alliance's reputation, everyone would have torn this ***starred apart. You're so arrogant. Do you want to become the Alliance's public enemy? Why sure, Jean, do you have any respect for us? But amidst the angry rebuke, Huaisher slowly stood up. She casually pulled a tablecloth and wiped her hands. Then, she turned her head and coldly glanced at the angry faces. She seriously told them, he said seriously, "To be honest, I know that everyone hates me. I also know that you don't like a young boy sitting side by side with you. What I've done is not very likable. I was well aware of this. But I don't care." He raised his voice and told everyone, "If I want something, I will take it myself. If I want to do something, I will do it myself. If anyone dares to stand in my way, then he is my enemy." Just like that, he casually threw the tablecloth behind Kuroda's head and waved calmly. "I've said my piece. That's all. I made my choice. Everyone, do as you please." After politely saying goodbye to Shang Tianmu and thanking him for his warm hospitality today, Huaisher stepped into the silence and turned to leave. Immediately after, the angry shouts rang out. After Huaisher Jin set an example, the rest of the people were no longer polite. Some people had already divided the territory with others before the end of the banquet, and how to divide up these properties. Shang Tianmu, on the other hand, was drinking tea and watching with a smile on his face. Only at the end, before he got up and left, did he say a few words. "You all know the rules of competition and gambling within the Alliance, so I don't need to repeat them." If this old man knew that someone still dared to fiddle with something that wasn't presentable, he definitely wouldn't play it down like he did today. Following his words, a middle-aged man with a saber suddenly appeared in the corner of the hall and raised his eyes. The sharp blade at his waist was pushed out by an inch with his thumb. A terrifying chill spread out in an instant, just like death, shrouding everyone's heads and making them shudder. This was Shang Tianmu's final warning. Next time, if you break the rules again, it will be him who comes to see you. At this time, in the car, Huaisher, who was deep in thought, raised his eyes and looked behind him. In young Master Ming's senses, on the winding mountain road 2 kilometers away, a pure and exquisite killing intent was still so clear. There was actually a stage for Hidden in the Alliance, unexpectedly. He recalled what he saw that night: the middle-aged man with a saber and the old man with a spear. The old man was a stage 3, but the ancient spear in his arms was frighteningly powerful. It was definitely some kind of stigmata relic. And the middle-aged man's saber was very ordinary, which made people tremble with fear. It was all because of his extraordinary power and the killing intent that Dao Chan had cultivated for decades. Looking at it this way, in terms of style, it should be one sword style. While he was deep in thought, he saw the constantly changing expression of Shangye, who was driving in front. He looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped. Sometimes he was happy, sometimes he was sad. "What's the matter?" Huaisher asked. "Cough, cough, it's Big brother, what you said at the banquet." Shangye's expression was complicated. At that time, it had already spread outside. Huaisher's expression twitched. "Wow, the speed at which you guys spread your gossip. Did you guys install a bug in the venue?" "Big brother, do we really want all of them?" Shangye asked tentatively, looking a little uneasy. "What's the matter? Are you scared?" Huaisher laughed. No, it's just..." Shangye hesitated for a long time before reminding in a low voice, "We really don't have enough people in Huaisher Group. How are we going to manage so many businesses?" Anyway, ever since he followed Huaisher and massacred the Tiger King group, Shangye had completely given up on using his brain. He believed whatever Big Brother said, not to mention doubts. Even a question mark would not appear in his mind. If Big Brother said he wanted all of them, then he would definitely want all of them. If Big Brother felt that he could handle it, then he definitely could. The only hateful thing was that Big Brother was so powerful, but Huaisher Group was too lousy after the expansion and selection, and again, according to Huaisher's orders, the current Huaisher Group only had about 200 people. They couldn't keep up at all. I actually still have many brothers in my hometown. At this point, Shangye volunteered and patted his chest. "I'll go and recruit people tonight. I definitely won't disappoint Big Brother." Puffed. Huaisher couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed. Shanya, don't tell me you really think that Huaishir group can take all of them? Shanya was dumbfounded. Can't we? That can't be. Huaishir spread his hands. To be honest, I didn't think that we could take all of them either. The current Huaishir group can't handle all of them at all. Even if we manage to take in all of our opponents, we don't have that many trustworthy backbones to support the organization's framework. It's enough as long as we can grab a few of the most important pieces. There's no need to care about the rest. Shangya didn't understand. Then Big Brother, why would you? It's very simple. The most important thing isn't to take all of them. Huaishir said softly. It's to let the others know through the following actions. I have the ability to take the things in their hands. And the reason why they can take them is only because I don't want them. Let them understand the gap between them and themselves. Let them understand that they can earn money because Big Brother Huaishir gave it to them. It's really nice to live in a world where the bigger fist makes the right. Huaishir couldn't help but laugh mockingly. All of them are bad people. None of them are good. I don't feel guilty at all when I cut them up. Shanya, I really like Extreme Tao. Unfortunately, the person next to him wasn't the quick-witted little 19, but the simple-minded Shanya who didn't even finish compulsory education. After listening to him, he held it in for a long time until his face turned red. Big Brother Huaishir is awesome. While the vehicles were moving forward, dozens of lights lit up the road ahead. More than a dozen cars were densely packed on the mountain road. Passing through the dense crowd in front of them, the dazzling high beams shone straight ahead. The Extreme Tao who were holding machetes, baseball bats, and all kinds of weapons narrowed their eyes and identified the number plates of the vehicles. Then, their expressions quickly turned fierce. They didn't hide their killing intent at all. Revenge for Big Brother Kuroda! Someone shouted loudly in the noisy noise. Shanya subconsciously raised his hand and touched his toolbox, wanting to take out his gun. However, he was stopped by Huaishir. Old Man Shinyanmu just said that guns are forbidden in the upcoming internal conflicts of the Alliance. Look at the other side. They didn't bring anything, right? Shanya thought for a while and cautiously suggested, our vehicles have been modified. We're not afraid of collisions. Why don't we charge over first? There's no need for that. It's just a few opponents. Huaishir slowly rolled up his sleeves. Soon he paused for a moment, then rolled up his sleeves and buttoned them up. When he looked up at Shanya, he revealed a strange smile. I'll leave it to you, Shanya. He raised his hand and patted Shanya's shoulder. He said earnestly, just treat it as if you're using your iron fist on them for me. Huh? Shanya was completely dumbfounded. He looked at Huaishir, then at the opponents who were rapidly approaching outside the window. He couldn't see their numbers clearly in the dark, but there were at least hundreds of them, right? Did he offend Big Brother in some way? Why did he arrange for him to do this? He was dumbfounded. However, when he met Huaishir's expectant and serious gaze, he couldn't say anything. Soon he swallowed dryly. Leave it to me. With the mentality that he was going to die, he pushed open the door and got out of the car. He had already decided to sacrifice himself for Big Brother Huaishir. Although he might not be able to defeat them, it didn't matter. A person like Big Brother must have his reasons for arranging for him to do this, suppressing the urge to tremble with his hands. He took out 2 brass knuckles from his pocket and held them in his hands. He stood in front of the car and roared at the enemies who were rapidly approaching in front of him. Come on, bastards. Your opponent is me, Shiro Ueno from the Huaishir group. He wanted to say that. However, just as the words reached his throat, he heard a strange crow's cry. A fervent aura surged from his heart. Immediately after, the words that came out of his mouth became completely different. Holy! In that instant, under the crisscrossing lights of the car, the people who were charging over all saw countless wisps of black smoke rise from Shanya's shadow, as if they were hallucinating. They intertwined in midair to form a sinister silhouette. It was like a pitch-black bird spreading its wings and soaring. The dark silhouette pounced into Shanya's body, causing the burly man's aura to instantly become ferocious and fierce. His eyes were blood-red. The origin substance from Iron Crow circulated in his body, bringing with it a seemingly endless amount of power. It caused his blood to boil and his soul to roar. In that instant, Shang took a step back, raised his hand, and punched forward. It was a clean, direct punch. Bang! A muffled sound that sounded like a broken thermos rang out. Immediately after, the extreme Dao cultivator who was charging at the very front was sent flying. On his collapsed chest, bloody wounds caused by the brass knuckles appeared. There was also a deep fist imprint. Weno grinned and let out a sharp shriek that sounded like the high-pitched chirping of a bird. The blood-red light in his eyes was almost reflected. He could feel the power surging in his body at this moment. So strong. He laughed excitedly and punched out. He ignored the blade that was slashing down and once again defeated the opponent charging at him from the right. With one punch, that person's entire body bent 90 degrees. He clutched his stomach and could no longer get up. Meanwhile, the blade that was slashing down landed on his raised arm. After cutting through a layer of clothing and skin, it was clamped down by his bulging muscles. That's it. Shang slowly turned his head and looked at the dazed man. His iron arm swept out, and the brass knuckles smashed down. Amidst the low whistling sound that broke through the air, that face gradually distorted and swayed in this almost stagnant time. Like a ripe pomegranate, it opened its small mouth and spat out teeth-like seeds that floated in the air. Immediately after, it flew together with its owner into the darkness where the light could not find it. At this moment, the violent power spread out along with Shangye's movements, making him feel overjoyed and happy. His sharp teeth glowed with a cold metallic light. Then, the brutal 1 versus 92 began. Chapter 742. Under the deep night sky, the winding mountain road was pitch black. Only the crisscrossing high beams illuminated the countless crisscrossing figures. Amidst the ear-piercing screams and angry roars, the sinister silhouettes of shadows were constantly reflected on the blood-stained asphalt road. It took less than half a minute to knock down the first 10 people. Those who were sent flying screamed and fell to the ground, twitching and unable to get up. Then, it took him 40 seconds to knock out the next 10 people. Then 1 minute, 2 minutes, 41, 42, 43. 43 punches with all his strength. Ignoring the baseball bats and blades that landed on his head and body, Weno panted with all his might and looked up at the enemies in front of him. They swayed in the cold light of the car lights and circled around him, like monsters baring their fangs and brandishing their claws in the dark. He couldn't see where they were. Only shadows constantly flashed in front of his eyes. Die, monster! Someone jumped up and smashed a baseball bat with iron nails on his head. Amidst the turbulence, his vision became slightly dizzy. Then, the bat was held. Weno raised his hand and flicked the bat in his hand. Together with the person on the other side, he looked up at the blank face and grinned. So you're here. In midair, the bat was pulled out, aimed at his head, and smashed down. The sound of the bat and bones breaking overlapped. 44. Weno roared. Again. He roared. Again. Then 45, 46, 47. The cruel counting continued. But those angry roars were getting further and further away, as if they were becoming blurry together with the blooming world in front of them. In the end, only monotonous and persistent counting was left. 61, 62, 63, 63, 63. In a daze, Weno walked forward stiffly. His blood-red eyes that had lost focus stared at the enemy in front of him, at the pale and twitching face. But there was the sharp sound of tires rubbing against the ground. The lights were rapidly approaching. Then the sky and the earth began to spin and shake rapidly. The earth suddenly jumped up and smashed into his head. He rolled and landed on the ground. He heard a scream in the distance. Someone opened the car door and shouted excitedly, "He's dead. He was dead. That monster is dead." He widened his eyes in confusion, not understanding what was going on. What? Am I dead? Not yet, Weno. The person sitting next to him said, "You're still alive." Am I still alive? Yeah, aren't you breathing? That person lowered his head and looked at him, full of praise. It's not over yet. You can't fall here. Have I fallen? Yeah, the enemy is still in front of you, Winnow. Can you still fight? The voice that was filled with anticipation asked. In his confusion and drowsiness, Shanya listened in a daze. He couldn't help but laugh. There was no answer, only the fist with twisted knuckles slowly raised. It was scarlet with blood. Amidst the screams and roars, it emitted a cold light, illuminating every pair of fearful eyes. Come on, Shanya grinned, revealing his shark's teeth. He grinned at everyone happily. Go and tell them that it's not over yet. I can still fight. 64. It was a clean and neat punch. The intermission was over. The cruel count began again. After that, there were no more sounds. The roars disappeared. The cries disappeared. The only thing left was the sound of bones breaking when they collided with each other, and the soft sound of blood mixing with blood. 91. 91. At the very end, the bloodstained man stepped forward. His empty eyes stared at the last enemy in front of him, and a terrifying, fanatical smile appeared on his face. He didn't care about the enemy kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy in fear. He swung the last iron fist. A high-pitched scream spread, piercing through the dark night. The kneeling enemy closed his eyes in despair, but the terrifying impact that he had expected did not come. When that person opened his eyes, he saw the fist hovering in front of him. When the final force of an arrow at the end of its flight fell, it was no longer enough to touch the last opponent. Only a wisp of blood dripped from the broken brass knuckles and landed on his face. With the force of 1,000 pounds, it crushed his last bit of rationality. The man collapsed on the ground, twitching. There was a watery glow spreading from his crotch. In front of an opponent who was like a demon, he no longer had the courage to raise his weapon. 92. The voice that came from behind Winnow put an end to this battle. When he turned around in a daze, he saw the smile of his team leader. Congratulations, Shanya, Huaisher said. You could take charge now. Shanya was stunned for a long time. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he didn't even have the strength to support his body. He staggered and fell. Huaisher reached out, grabbed his arm, and propped him up. When he turned around, he saw the cars parked in the distance on the mountain road behind him. The Alliance members who returned after the banquet. In the distance, the team leaders smoked in silence. They stood quietly in the darkness, witnessing the beginning and end of this battle. Soon, there was a crisp applause. It wasn't clear where it came from, but the applause soon spread. Abandoning their prejudices and unhappiness, these men who belonged to the extreme path offered their congratulatory gifts in the most straightforward way, celebrating the completion of this tragic trial. The birth of a real man. Do you see, Shanya? This is all applause for you. Huaisher turned around and told him seriously, "You're amazing today." Indeed, the ghost crow could enter Shanya's body through young Master Ming's power, multiplying his strength and making him fearless. However, this power was not limitless. From the 40th person onwards, the source substance and power given by the ghost crow had been used up. All that was left was a vigorous life force. From then on, everything that Shanya did came from his own will. This was a miracle that belonged to him alone. When Shanya woke up again, it seemed like a long time had passed. He was already back in the car. It was as if he had a long dream. When he opened his eyes, he didn't know what had happened. This time, Huaisher was the one driving. He sat in the passenger seat. In his drowsiness, he looked at the neon lights outside the window. "Boss, what happened to me just now?" he asked softly. "I seem to have gained a lot of power." "It's magic, Shanya," Huaisher replied. In his confusion, Shanya couldn't help but laugh. "Boss, are you a magician?" "Yes, something like that. Believing in your heart is magic," Huaisher said casually. He flipped through the plastic bag beside him and handed it over. "Do you want to drink beer? It's still cold. I left it for you." "Sure." Shanya took the beer and enjoyed the cold feeling in his hand. He sniffed the fragrance of the wheat and smiled. Just like that, he fell into a deep sleep in an indescribable drowsiness. Before the sun had even risen, the explosive news had already spread to the ears of the entire alliance. Just a few hours ago, under the witness of all the leaders of the alliance. The usually ordinary shark man, Weno Shiro, had actually single-handedly defeated the entire Kuroda group's men, fighting against 92 men alone. Even the big shot from the Arakawa family was shocked. He praised his left and right. You have to see clearly. This is a real man. For a moment, Shiro Weno was in the limelight. Even Huaishi's group couldn't believe that the big brother Shangye, who used to drink and brag with them, was so brave. There was an endless stream of people coming to visit him. On the other hand, Weno, whose hands and feet were still wrapped in bandages, was lying on the bed and excitedly telling others about his heroic performance last night. When he reached the part where Boss encouraged him, he even took a sip of beer from the bedside table and asked someone to add more ice. It was as if he could drink that beer for an entire year. "Oh, right, where's Boss Huaishi?" After Weno repeated the story of his fight against the Kuroda group 8 times, Weno slapped his head as he finally remembered. Boss Huaishi is still in the office. He came quite early today. One of the underlings said, "It seems like he has something important to tell us. He's talking to everyone in the group today." I just went over. Someone beside him interrupted. He held a banana in his hand and excitedly boasted, "Boss Huaishi actually knows my name. He asked how my family is doing. He even knows that I have 2 sisters. Oh my, even those 2 brats, Naka and Yoshiko, got gifts." As he spoke, he took out a box of crayons and showed it off. He didn't even let anyone touch it. He was overjoyed. "You bastard, you must have gotten a raise." Someone looked over suspiciously and slapped the table. "No wonder he's so happy. He's treating us tonight." "Tonight?" The person who spoke snorted. "I'm treating you tonight. Do you dare to go?" "Huh, you stingy bastard. If you dare to treat us, do you think I don't dare to eat? Don't you know? Mr. Odama said that he has already booked a place. Boss is treating all the old members of the group to drinks tonight." The middle-aged man who was smoking flicked the ash off his cigarette and patted the shoulder of the young man behind him. "It's good to have seniority. Ox Island, it's useless to be envious. Endure it for a few years." The yellow-haired young man who was called Ox Island scratched his head awkwardly and laughed. He quickly waved his hand modestly, not daring to compare himself with the seniors. Seeing that the topic was away from him, he smiled, but the disdain in his heart could not be hidden from the corner of his eyes. "Envious? Envious my ass. You said it as if you're envious that you idiots can eat. And that guy Aso, he's been in the business for so many years. He's bled a lot and worked hard. The group leader has probably changed his luxury car several times. Yet he's so happy just because he gave you a crayon. Is there something wrong with his brain? How did this group of idiots become extreme Tao?" He began to doubt it from the bottom of his heart. He deeply realized that he could not chat with the idiots of the Huaisher group. The phone in his arms vibrated slightly. He found an excuse to go to the bathroom and left the room. When he walked into the bathroom and found that there was no one inside, he walked to the innermost area and pretended to urinate. He picked up the phone. "Why did you pick up so late?" The voice on the phone asked directly. "You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."